shoes last night to see if he was barefoot. Is that still the case? Is he barefoot? Because I know on Facebook somebody posted a picture of these could be his shoes, or is that so he is presumed to be barefoot at this point?
What I can say is that his mom says all of his shoes are accounted for at the house. I'm not going to say that he's barefoot.
All right.
Allegedly!
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Lady Freedom here coming at you with another raw narrative. Here's a brief disclaimer for tonight's show. Let's watch.
That's ignorant! Allegedly, that's ignorant! Ignorant.
Judgment, Austin.
Oi, you read my thoughts. You've got the shinin.
You mean shining?
Shh, you wanna get sued?
Judgment, Austin.
You just use that shin of yours to call me and I'll come a running. But don't be reading my mind between 4 and 5. That's Willie's time.
Hey, yo, father. I love it when he does that.
Let's watch.
Don't get me back to good bullshit.
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Lady Freedom here coming at you with another raw narrative, and it's so good to see all of you guys tonight. Thank you for being here, Wild Wolf, and hitting the like button. Thank you all for hitting the like button. I saw you guys down there. I saw Holly S. Thank you, Holly S, for your super sticker. Thank you so much. I also saw Megan Nels and Rogue. Hey Rogue. I saw Ann Reynolds. Good to see all of you guys. Twists and Turns. Peggy. I also saw Suzanne and Michelle. Kiki, I'm glad that you had a good time on your vacation. I also saw Show Poodles. Show Poodles, I don't do well in big crowds either. I understand. I also, although I would have went to see Ozzy Osbourne. I posted that on my community wall. I would definitely go see Ozzy's last show and deal with the crowds there. But it looked like a pretty good group of people for what I saw. And then I also saw Mama and Borna Honey. Thank you for hitting the like. And BMW Coop, thank you so much for the compliment on the music. I had to play that one tonight again because of, fish sticks. We're going to talk about fish sticks tonight. He got paid 15 grand. Apparently, allegedly, he was paid 15 grand to do nothing. And he didn't even tell us that, his client passed the poly. He quietly backed into the bushes, right? And then we just see him popping up to, harass people like me. So I'll show all of you guys that later. But last night we had a fireworks show on YouTube. And if you were over in the Mob Crew last night, it was pretty wild. It was great. And, Chris is a very humble, very intelligent person. He's usually pretty soft-spoken because I think he's just confident in the work that he does and how hard he works on this case. And it was hilarious to see him last night, though. He's calling himself Snarky Chris, so that's what we'll call him. But he was just cracking me up. I mean, I was laughing so hard. Hey, Mandy Moo, good to see you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hey, butterflies are to fly free. Good to see you. So it was it was hilarious, guys. I did not clip any of it, but I did grab some of this. Me too, Holly S. Oh my gosh, he's so hilarious, right? We love Chris over here. He's the good Chris, right? We got Crispy, and then we got Chris, right? Yes, that was great. Spicy Chris. Yes, and I just blame it on me being Latina. I'll just say I'm getting fiery Latina over here. But I don't know. Chris was in rare form, but I liked it. It was good. He was basically like, this is getting ridiculous. And it is ridiculous. It's there's so many questions, and then there's so many lies, and then we have all of these elements that we wouldn't expect to see from a mother of a missing child. I mean, it's really out of control. And as much research as we've all done on this case, or as much as we've talked about the case in chats or watched videos about it, it's just very apparent that there is guilty knowledge, if not direct involvement, from the Proud Fee. And that's my opinion. And it hasn't changed. And even when I watched the first couple interviews and we talked about that, it's like, it's so obvious, and it's so annoyingly obvious because they try to make us believe something that is completely opposite from what is logical. So it's frustrating to everyone, right? And so I loved, hey, Ann Reynolds, and I can see you, honey. I put you up on the screen earlier. But it's like, what are we doing here, right? So even like yesterday, he had these really great, helpers, or, to help him present. And I kind of took some of those and then I added some of the words that he was kind of saying, or some of my thoughts, onto them. So that's what we're going to go over tonight. But this one is like, who is actually searching, right? So who's actually searching? Well, we know that Katie and Chris say that they were searching, but then they weren't, right? Come to find out, they weren't doing that. And then when they were confronted about it, they basically said, well, the police told us not to look. The police told us not to look. But a lot of us, out here, I know on the streets here at YouTube and just in chats in general, hey, Seclusion Works, in chats in general, we were all kind of like, who cares what law enforcement says if your child's out there and they're missing? Hey, Mama Marissa, we're all going to go look, right? We would, not to disrespect law enforcement at all. It's just because we would have that need to find our child, right? And we see that with Seth Rogers. We see the need to find his child. And, Chris played a clip, and please go watch Chris's video, guys. It's great, of his live from last night, 4th of July live. You know, this is Seth in front of the police station, and he played this interview, and we watched it here, so I didn't feel like pulling it in again. But I mean, we all saw the heartbreak, the need. And he says, I need my son back. Like, I need him back, please. And he's pleading, and he's like, I mean, what any other parent would do, because you'd just be beside yourself if you didn't know, right? It's the not knowing. And Seth's out there, and he's like, hey, I need help. I need everyone to still be looking for my son, And then we have Sumner County knows that they dropped the ball in this case. And they did, So here's the statement that they put out when Seth showed up to the Seth showed up to the police department. Please know that behind the scenes, a tremendous amount of work has been done and will continue. Some aspects of the investigation are not visible to the public due to the sensitive nature of the case. And that's completely okay and well and fine. And we all can accept that to a certain degree. But they absolutely, in my opinion, dropped the ball on this case in the beginning. Chris also brings up JonBenet Ramsey and how there was contamination of a crime scene right off the bat. We have that in the Sebastian Rogers case. And I'll tell you, I have the screenshot from the Facebook post where Melissa Proudfoot says that they were looking for Sebastian since 6:30 in the morning. But, just as a reminder, the call to dispatch wasn't even until 6:33 a.m., right? And you see that in this timeline that Chris created, again, showing us step by step what happened that morning, right? Went to go wake up Sebastian up, 6:03, calls Chris three-way shortly after, 6:05, right? Seen outside calling for Sebastian Rogers around 6:20 a.m. 6:20 a.m., guys. And then she's seen driving up Kellen Avenue at 6:32 a.m. So she waited to call. Was she on the phone with Melissa? Was she on the phone with Mama Socks or Terry Socks? Who was she on the phone with? Because that's a definite lapse in time, and it's a significant amount of time when we think about the timeline of events and what we would be doing. And don't forget that there was no call to Seth. Seth did not get a phone call from Katie. Nada. Not a cell phone call. Nothing. She didn't text him and say, our son's missing. She didn't call up to the prison and say, our son's missing. Hey, Bluegrass Meadows, good to see you. None of that. And instead, she drives around the neighborhood with her windows rolled up at a speed that she couldn't really possibly be looking for anybody. Not even an animal, like say your dog got loose or something like that. I mean, but we're talking about a 15-year-old boy, her 15-year-old son, it's crazy. Hey, Hindsight, good to see you. Sorry, guys, I'm looking back over the chat. I'm pretty fired up. I was pretty fired up yesterday, but I tried to be courteous in other people's chats, and since I have a platform, I'll just wait to talk about it. But it's one of those things where I just couldn't wait to talk about this tonight, because it absolutely shows that things are not kosher. They didn't get away with anything. We can all see right through it, we can all see right through it. And it's an insult to our intelligence when they think that they can get away with telling us a complete lie to our faces. Hey, Mama Bear, and we're supposed to believe it. And if we don't, then we're the bad guys, right? We're the ones that are horrible, and we're a cult, and, you know, oh God, heaven forbid that we don't believe their bullshit, because I don't. And there's a lot of people that don't. There was about 650 people yesterday on a holiday, okay, right, in Chris's chat that was like, this is bullshit. I'm sure there was some trolls in the bushes, but I don't really give a shit about those guys. I care about the smart people. Mama Bear says Chris thinks he's all that and a bag of chips, when the truth is he's just a tree stump with a bag of chips. Yeah, he's a stumpy little shit, isn't he? That's why he's so crispy. I think he's got a Napoleon complex. It's like, I know you're not big, and I know that your feet aren't that big. You say you have size 14s, but I think that's a lie. It all just feels really off. It does feel really off. Thanks, Talias. Because, I mean, you know, if we're looking at it, and just even a fresh set of eyes can kind of take a look at this case and really say something isn't right here. You know, if he was with his mother last, but she won't come out and talk, and then when they do come out and talk, they don't even go to their house where Sebastian went missing from. Any of you other parents out there who I've talked to privately, who have told me your story here, I see you. And I know that you memorialize your child, their room, the space they were in. You do special things for them to honor their memory. I know, I see you. And I know, and I see you, Katie, and I don't see you doing that. I mean, Chris was referencing different cases, but I mean, even look at Kyron Horman's mother. He has been missing for 15 years, and she's still doing car washes. She's still spreading awareness. She's still trying to get Terry's ass. You know, she's out to get that woman who did this to her son, because she knows that this woman did that to her son. She knows that's who was the last one with her son. And she's not ever going to give up. She never will. And, you know, that's what we don't see here. And if we saw that, it would be a whole different ball game. But instead, we see parents that want to make a circus of the case, go on different panels for creators who are only doing trauma, right? And they're self-proclaimed. I'm not making fun of or saying anything bad or negative about anybody right here. They're trauma channels, right? They say that they're about trauma. That's what they're about. So trauma, for you guys that don't know, it's drama mixed with crime, which really has no place, in my opinion. I don't respect what they do. I don't, because it's completely different from what I'm trying to do. I respect people like Chris, who say, if I could help solve or do good for just one case, then I'm going to die happy. That's the kind of person I respect. That's the kind of person I'll give my $2.99 to. That's the kind of person that I will like, follow, share. I'm sorry that you enjoy that nasty shit over there. I don't like it. It's trash, and I'll never have it. And if you sit over there and like that shit, then please sit over there and like it, and don't bring it to me, because that's not what we do here. We're true crime. We discuss cases. We're trying to help. We're trying to spread awareness. That's what we do here. They want to do that other crap over there, that's fine. But look at who the parents are going to spread their story. And when they go up there, they talk about anything but Sebastian, in and including things of an sex nature, and showing apparatuses. I'm trying to be careful for YouTube policies that people use in adult situations to pleasure themselves. Gross. In a kid's case. And then they get up there and say, oh, I'm all about the kids. No, you're not. You're about yourself. You're disgusting. And you're sitting up there with one of the prime suspects, in my opinion, but for real. there's a reason why he's complaining that Ali will not clear him. It's because you're not cleared, dude. Your wife was the last one with this kid, and your family is known for doing shit together and dirty shit behind the scenes together. All of you guys. You're known for that. That's your reputation. But you expect us to believe otherwise, you know? Well, that's so true, show poodles. It is so hard to watch, and you can't fake that raw emotion. There's nothing about Seth that is up there and phony. No, it is just so awful, right? It's like, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, excuse me, if you're a parent. He's continuously begging for help, Mama Marissa, just continuously begging. And I mean, he's shameless. He doesn't care. I'd be the same way. I wouldn't care what you guys said about me. I really wouldn't. And I know you guys aren't the ones saying stuff, but that's what I'm saying is I wouldn't care what the general public had to say about me or anything. I don't care about ugly crying, about yelling, about looking like a psychopath, a crazy woman. Where's my kid? Where's my kid? That's what I'd be worrying about. I would be giving up all of any information that would clear me and my husband right off the bat. If it was me and my husband, I would be trying to make sure that law enforcement, the public, everybody knew that it wasn't us. So that way they can look for the real person who has my son, who did something to him, whatever, you know, BMW coupe, you know, a direct quote from Chris Proudfoot, life goes on. Another one that comes to mind, thank you, is, you know, Katie has to put her big girl panties on. She needs to forget about her son, is basically what he said there. You know, life goes on. We have to live in this even when it's over. Well, it's never going to be over for us until Sebastian's found and justice is served. Because if someone has him, they need to pay. If people are involved in hurting him, they need to pay. If he was put in a school by Chris and Katie on the sly and someone hurt him there, they still have to pay. If Sebastian's just fine somewhere hidden, which some people think that's true, he still was away from his dad. He still was probably sad being away from his normal environment. He also has autism, which means that his routine to him is everything. And so, yeah, he's not going to be in good shape when he does come back home, in my opinion. It's going to be a lot of work to get him reacclimated, depending on what he's going through now. And that's the best case scenario. Let's be honest. He's been missing over a year and a half. Somewhere out there, you know. Hey, Bluegrass Meadows. Michelle says in her car pic, she didn't look like she was on the phone or windows rolled up. Oh, and windows rolled up. Yeah, she did not look like she was on the phone. No. And it's really, really difficult to kind of make out. But let's not forget that someone leaked these photos out. Someone wanted us to see what was really happening that day. The more that we can have that happen, the better in this case. Because we need to understand Katie's not going to tell us the truth because she's involved. She has guilty knowledge, allegedly, in my opinion. And then they have all of these people that are not trying to find Sebastian, but they're trying to threaten people or make the case into a complete freak show. Thanks, Kiki, for having everyone hit the like button. I really appreciate you guys hitting the like button. It means the world to me. Well, there you go. Seclusion works. That sounds like a good idea. That always makes me relaxed. Soaking in the tub. Holly S. says, I've been watching the Murdaugh case, never paid much attention to it. Now it reminds me so much of the Feet Sox family and L.E. Yeah, that one is a really great true crime story, right? Just to show wealth, privilege, and what can really happen. When Paul came into court, I couldn't even, and he looked like a gentleman, and he got the gentleman's treatment, and none of us would get that. We'd have to wear the orange. We'd be in trouble, right? If we were drunk off our asses and, you know, driving our boat, and then somebody got thrown from the boat because we hit a big pillar. I mean, you know, and boy, did they try to keep that hush hush. And that was judges. I mean, you know, historic too, like judges and law family, right? And then they were basically like untouchable because, well, until they started stealing money from their own friends, and that was really what ultimately brought them down. Because I think if that wasn't a factor, I really truly believe that that family would still be living to you know, bring corruption to another day. So Mark Mark Klein, oh my god, I just saw this. It says, he says a size 14 mouth maybe. Yeah, Mark, exactly. Holly, yes. We got whiskey eggplant coming. Hey, Shadow. Chris told Seth he would Chris told Seth he would have told him and Katie. He confirmed with Sebastian he was moving in with him. Downside is that conversation never happened on Web Sleuths. If the PIs knew Sebastian would still be with us. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that LE probably, well, I'll just say this. I'll say when Chris came onto Web Sleuths, that was the same interview that he was talking about how he can get Bobby and Carter on the phone right now and they can have a little effing powwow together. And, you know, Chloe's like, whoa, 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 we don't want to have a powwow like that. And, you know, calm down basically. And he was livid, you know. He was absolutely livid. Holly S says he never made any sense with Carter. Said that was the only case he's on. Not only do they lie big lies, in my opinion. Yeah, well, and I mean, who knows what the connections there are? I mean, I'm not as familiar with many of those connections, but I do know what Nina has told us, right, is that they all come together if something they don't like is happening to Chris mainly, right? So like if Chris's ex had broken up with him, then they were going to go after him. Why? Just because she broke up with you? Maybe you should have done better. Maybe you shouldn't have been such an asshole. Did you ever think about that one? Or is it always someone else's fault? Yeah, Krama is a Cancer, Holly. Yes, it is. It is. It's like that black crap that seeps in, you know, it's insidious. And it's not, it's no good for anybody, really. You know? Oh, yes, Mama Marissa says, Chris says to Seth, we need to get our stories straight. Yeah, and they had that pact, Mama Marissa, and that has always really bothered me, that pact. And, you know, the fact that Seth didn't want to go along with it, that was a huge red flag to me. I could see that Seth wasn't really wanting to go along with what their narrative was. I mean, because it wasn't hunky-dory. He knew that he was, and see, that's the thing. If you guys think about it, and thank you so much, Mama Marissa, because this just jogged my memory about a point to make too. You know, Seth didn't want to be a part of what they were saying because it wasn't true. So right off the bat, Seth was trying really hard not to lie to the public without making them look like the idiots that they are. He was trying really, really hard, right? Because he wasn't coming out at first and saying, no, that's not true, right? He didn't do that at first. He was kind of reserved on that front. But when it came to all of this other crap, when they were up on panels telling everybody how Sebastian, you know, didn't have access to the internet at all and his device was really clean and everything. Well, he had access to his device and the internet when he was at Seth's house. But we also were reminded by Chris from the mob crew last night that, you know, Seth was only around his son on the weekends, right? So Sebastian was at Seth's every other weekend, and Seth was working on getting custody, right? Sebastian was actually due to go live with his dad, and that would have been when school let out in May, closer to June probably. But, when school let out, that was when Sebastian was to go live with his father. And that was already set up, and they were trying to do that earlier than, rather than later. But Sebastian was waitlisted, allegedly, for the online program. But a spot opened up, thankfully, and he was due to go live with his dad, right? Seth has the best alibi between the parents, and I agree with this statement. And the reason why I agree with this is because Seth was at work in a very highly controlled environment, so much so to where he wasn't even allowed to keep his cell phone with him while he was on the job. So he had a lot of rules. There were cameras everywhere, and there was a badge that dinged him in and out of the facility. So it's not like if he would have left for lunch break, right, and went to a McDonald's, it would have shown that activity, right? It would have shown him clocking in and out. It would have showed him, leaving the facility, using the badge to get in and out, right? Because he returned that night and he was there the whole entire night. But we don't even see that kind of activity. He was there all night. And then he gets a text message saying, don't be mad. But Sebastian's missing. It's just so strange. Hey, Mima for the missing. Good to see you. Hey, Blessed. They treat Sebastian's disappearance with same disrespect as they speak about him, in my opinion. I agree with that, Blessed. And that's another issue, right? They just treat his disappearance as if they want it to go away, and they don't want people to talk about it anymore. And that's what's also so very frustrating, because it is disrespectful. It absolutely is. Adam Forever 21 says, fish sticks. Who else thinks Lady and Mom should do a show together? Yes, I would love to do a show with Mom. I would like to just pick his ear about the flashlight video. I mean, I know, or pick his brain, his ear. Maybe bend his ear on it. But I think it's definitely the most important piece to the puzzle, the flashlight video. And that's kind of where my theory's going. And I know you guys have kind of been with me through this, kind of painting this picture, and kind of building out a timeline. And I think all of us together, that's why it's so important for all of us to, respect each other's opinions, even if we don't agree. Because there's things, even I think, that I could probably watch Chris's videos and say, well, I don't agree here, but hey, thanks for doing such a awesome work, and working so hard. And so, but he really does a great job of showing us what happened that night with the lights video. Pincho Paxton is another one that I think did a really great recreation. Now, do I agree with his theory? Oh, heck no. I was probably like a lot of you guys, just thinking, okay, well, that's great, but I don't know that that's exactly what happened, right? Because they put cameras down and into the sewer systems, and they really searched it heavily, in my opinion. But then again, who knows? But yeah, he again did such hard work, and anybody that's willing to put all that work in, I'm right there cheering you on. Michelle says, only way they use Sebastian's name is if they want clicks for coins. Pretty sick to me. Yeah, well, and see, that's another thing Chris was saying. It's sick to me too, Michelle, because Chris was saying, If you're going to talk about my son, well, then you better not be monetizing, and you better be putting money back into the case. And, I don't know if he wanted somebody to pay him, because he did say, I caught him in Smiley's interview. It sounded like he was about to say, I want a cut, but he stopped himself. So I don't know, maybe he expects to get some money out of a super chat or something. But, from all of the money that I've seen change hands on the Krama channels that he does go on, I'm just curious as to why he would go after, say, someone like JLR, who travels the country and covers all of these cases. It's not like he, singled Sebastian out or anything like that. Same thing with Smiley, trying to make her feel bad. And then when she tried to get a yard sign, he was, it was like, where'd you go, Chris? You guys got me laughing. BMW Coupe Mama Risa in hindsight. Seclusion says, how can you forget a missing child or person? Well, exactly. Just anybody in general, right? Because I feel like that seclusion works. Like if it was my neighbor or somebody, I was thinking about that. I would be like beside myself. I'd be like, where is he? And sadly, it sounds like the neighbors really never saw Sebastian like out playing, which is sad. I'm not saying that some children, nowadays you kind of got to like push the kids to get outside. I get that, right? I'm not saying that that's not a phenomenon when, we have so many electronics and so much in the house. I'm guilty of it sometimes too. I'll be like, go outside, get some sun. So I get that, because you can get involved in your phone, or gosh, if I play those match games, I could sit there for hours and play those matching games. Hey, Linda Hall, like Gardenscapes or something like that. Oh my gosh, I could totally get down with that. But, Mama Risa. Yes, Sebastian needs to be found no matter what. BMW Coupe, well said. He does. He needs to be found no matter what. We need to figure out what happened to him. And even, my theory with the lights doesn't even fully explain what happened next. There's more to it. There's more to the story. There is. Michelle says, I think they used Seth's school timing to look good, but I believe this was their plan all along. They did not want him telling what went on in CP's house. It was premeditated and planned, in my opinion. Yeah, Michelle, that is where I'm going with it. And the reason being is because what I think transpired could not have only been the work of a spur of the moment type thing. And the fact that no one has been caught with any and charged, or, we don't even think they've been brought in for proper questioning. I don't anyway. I don't. And as much as I trust and believe in what At Night's doing, even if they told me that, I might not even believe them, because of the way the way that Katie has acted, and the way that law enforcement has acted, and how we hear that they're not even following up on leads and things like that. I mean, that to me is absolutely insane. Who would have thunk, right? Who would have thunk it? So it's, and I didn't watch Crime Time Buzz, but for maybe 5 minutes or so. But she was going over a lot of the things that they were, missing and things like that. Hey, Juicy Jules. Hey, Sammy G. Sammy G says, I thought somewhere, Mama Bear, that CP said, well, that would have changed everything about Sebastian going with Seth. I remember him saying some disparaging things about Seth on Web Sleuths, right? So he was saying things like, well, he really didn't he didn't really want to go to his dad's because he didn't like the idea of having to do online school. Well, I understand that, because it's my understanding that Sebastian loved his school and his school loved him, right? He loved the teachers adored him. The school resource officer loved seeing Sebastian. He made him laugh. I mean, the halls are darker without him there. I know it. And it's just really, really sad. But yeah, he did. He said a lot of really strange comments when it came to, even down to, Sebastian doesn't like his dad smoking. Well, no kids like their dad smoking, no kids like their parents smoking, especially when they find out that smoking is like very, very bad for you. Right. And then they try to get you to quit. My daughter, when she was about 5 years old, took all of my cigarettes and broke them in places where I could not fix them to smoke them. Okay, 5 years old. She was smart enough to break them up into pieces so I couldn't fix them. Okay. So kids do that. And, it broke my heart. And I was like, oh my God, and she doesn't want me smoking. And hey, Meg. But parents, we're the adults, right? But, and life is stressful and there's a lot of reasons why we smoke, and a lot of them, they got us addicted to this crap. And, but I mean, kids don't like that, right? It stinks. And, you go outside when there's kids around and stuff like that. But it's, that's normal. But he was trying to make it seem like Sebastian didn't want to go live with his dad. He absolutely did, Michelle says, in a true emergency, a parent wants help. 911 should have been called on the spot, and she would have never, left till they arrived. Exactly. And that's what I would have done. I would not have gone out into the neighborhood, especially if my child was not an eloper, right? If my child was an eloper, that's the first thing I might do, because I would think, oh gosh, they got out again, right? They're just around the block, right? They only made it towards the school. Whatever they were attracted to or whatever pulled them out of the house before that, that's what I would think first, right? But Katie told us he's not a runner. That's the first thing she told Duchess. That's the first thing she told Holly Thompson. And she was saying that throughout. And then Chris Proudfoot tells Chronicles of Olivia that, he doesn't wonder. He's not a wanderer, and he says a stupid way that he says it. And, it's like, they kept telling us this. So why would you go outside of the house, especially if you don't ever think that you're looking at the windows? That's what I would be doing. I'd be looking, how did he get out? Right. I mean, it would be very bizarre, but the first thing, and it's drilled into all of our heads, 911. Hey, Kathy Bartholomew, 911, 911. Adam Forever 21 says, Mama Bear, exactly. I've been involved in family services for years, and this is sketchy. Lies all around it, and all big cover-ups. I bet threats to that CPS worker too. And exactly, we were talking about the threats to Ron Blanton, and he was the judge in the case with Chris and Bullhorn Betty, and the Bauer Sox and Katie as well were involved. What happened there? What is going on? It's absolutely strange. Thank you, Meg. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, we need to find him. And I think it's interesting. Who has the bigger motive? This was another question that, was posed last night. Who has the bigger motive? And in my opinion, it's not Seth. I think Chris and Katie have the bigger motive here. Sammy G says, Lady Freedom's Raw Narratives, do you think Mob was just talking about TL, wasn't Crabtree? Because he said a person with Crabtree playing both sides equally. Yeah, okay, so I was really intrigued in that too, because, we had just talked about that. And I think that it may have been, but he did say he. And so I was thinking maybe Elevated Truth was my guess. I didn't put it in the comments, of course, because like I said, I didn't want to be, too opinionated in another chat. But It made me wonder. It made me wonder if there's others that, because like I said, I've heard from some really credible sources that, and one in particular, that these people are not who they portray themselves to be online. And so it was more of an act than anything, in terms of them not being friends with each other or them not knowing each other. Many of them kind of knew each other from the YouTube streets. And then, when Sebastian's case came about, I think that's when people started realizing, well, we can play both sides on this. And that's what they did. Because Crabtree was originally, involved with Tony Mathis and supposedly helping him try to figure out what was going on at Warsham's that morning. And then all of a sudden he was, talking with the other people about things and going on their panels and being in their chats and, but what's really odd to me is that, it doesn't seem like, I was in a chat the other day and it doesn't seem like Crabtree wants much to do with Terry Lynn, but Terry Lynn wants everything to do with Crabtree. So that part's really weird too. And I don't know if he's distancing himself from that, but I don't know. I see Seth and I see a grown version of Sebastian starting right back. That's sweet. Seclusion works. Thank you. Michelle says, I find it really weird if these two think he's going to get custody. You already lost one. There's no way they're going to give another to be careless with. Yeah. And I heard something about they bought Faith a dog. And I thought, well, are they going to let the dog go back to Faith? Right? Are they going to let the dog, because why would you buy the child a dog when she only comes to see you in the summer and then also in the winter for Christmas? That is very much big time parental manipulation, in my opinion. Manipulating the child, well, your doggy has to stay here because mommy won't let you live here, type of a thing. I don't like that. I think that's, when I heard that, I've been through it. So, unless they're planning on, unless it was okay with Nina and this dog is going to go back and live with Faith, I think that is some super duper manipulative, a mind fuck for a child. And it should never happen. It should never happen. So if they're like, oh, we got this dog to stay here, but it's your dog, what's wrong with you people? And yeah, who would give custody to that? But stranger things have happened. Yeah, absolutely. The question itself is ridiculous. Let me see. Mom Marissa says, sorry, I probably missed a comment up here, guys. Oh yeah, Mom Marissa says, okay, and Seth's time card wasn't like a copy of it. It clearly shows his boss sending the time record to Seth. Right, exactly. And that's the whole issue here. We don't have that type of thing. We have a phone call with Heather PI, and she's over there, joking and again bashing, creators who are trying to help. Hey, Seth says, and I won't stop looking for Sebastian ever. I know you won't. We're not ever going to stop either. We're not. That's what they want. That's exactly what they want. Oh, hey, Bernie Allen. Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, you can send it to my email too. And Mama Marisa, in hindsight, if you guys want to put your emails in, go ahead. Or I could send it to you guys too. Whatever works. But my email is just ladyfreedomsrawnarratives@gmail.com. But there's no apostrophe. Thanks, Bernie. I appreciate you. Mama Marissa, exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. Seth, we are on a mission and we will not stop. That's right. We're going to find him. And that's the thing. We have people who are working together, right? We work together. If I see something good, I'm going to share it. If I see, if I want to review it, up here, we'll review it. But if not, I'll share it. Those things really help, And I was even thinking to myself the other day too, I would love to see the yellow jacket and the shoes. I'm so skeptical. Here it comes, guys. But I want to see those. Tommy, if you're out there, I need to see these exact pieces of clothing, or I have questions. But that's just how it goes in true crime, right? Mama Bear says Bower socks are thugs within the little bit higher echelon of society. Yeah, they have their own familia, etc. Yep, Beat Down Squad with Katie in that club too. Yeah, and Katie will film it or whatever. That's I agree. I mean, she's in on it, right? Because I couldn't do it. I could never do that. I just couldn't. I wouldn't be involved in that family. That's for sure. You want me to do what to your ex-wife? You want me to do what to the mother of your children? Count me the fuck out, because I'm not doing it. I will not do it. And there's a problem when somebody would do that, and join into that. I mean, there's not enough money or comfort in the world for me. Yes, and we're going to stay committed to doing so too, Mama Marissa. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate when people, I appreciated seeing so many people in Chris's chat yesterday, and I'm thinking, and I was watching fireworks and watching Chris, and chatting in the chat, and, oh, don't be sorry, Kiki. Yeah, our heart's with Seth. Our heart is with Seth, and there's a reason why. It's not just because I decided, hey, I'm just going to pick Seth because, I like his hairstyle. No, it's not about that. It's about how he's portrayed himself in the beginning. I watched everybody. I was watching everybody. It's not like I only said, well, I'm only going to watch Chris and Katie's interviews because that was where Sebastian was last. No, I understood that there could have been a really strong possibility that Sebastian may have started walking towards his dad's house. There could have been a strong possibility, until we find out where Seth works, that he could have taken him, right? Because maybe there was an issue or whatever. Maybe he was protecting him. Who knows? So I thought, well, maybe he's with his dad, when I found out he has a dad. And that Chris and Katie are, mom and stepdad. So, thanks, Seth. Seth says, hey, everyone, I pray your holiday was good. Yeah, I had a good one. I had a pretty good one. Hey, Babs. Babs says, coming in late, scooting into the back pew. Thanks for being here, Babs. Yes. Hindsight says, thank you, Seth, praying for you and Sebastian daily. Yeah, and you have so many prayers here from us, Seth. I mean, you do. You just do. And support, and just because we want to find him too. That's what the goal is. So then Chris also, sorry guys, we went over that one. Okay, so I added this one in. I just said, hey, yo, idiots. Hey, yo, idiots and frauds. Seth was on camera, right? Because that's kind of what Mob had said. And so I hurried back and made this, presentation card or whatever you call it. But yeah, I mean, that this is the frustration, right? Because we're like, it's clear as day. Like there's not anything to be skeptical about. It's in full transparency. And I would do the same thing. I would present my time card to you guys. I really would. I'd say, here you go. Please don't question me. Please don't look this way, because you're wasting your time. I want my son to be found. And I find it very odd that we have these trauma channels left and right calling Chris a fraud. They had done that to him since he started with the lights video. Now, don't forget, guys, and I'm going to bring this back around every single time because this is what it's all about. This is what it's all about for me. The minute that I started messing with the lights video was the time that I was being called a fraud. I was being harassed and said, oh, Lady Freedom's this, she's that, she's a not really a realtor. I mean, anything stupid that they could come up with. But I watched it happen to Chris. I'm not the only one. I've watched it happen to several other good people. I've seen it happen to bad people. I've seen it happen to a lot of people on here. But in my opinion, I think it's fraudulent to lie to your audience just simply because you don't like the content that Chris is putting out, or I put out, or Justin puts out, or any of us put out. But it's just, go hard after anybody who talks about the light video. That speaks volumes to me. That speaks volumes to me. Well, Michelle Scott, that is such a great point. She says you can be homeschooled and still have a lot of friends groups. But Sebastian went to tournaments to play D&D, fishing, a lot of things. He loves being with Seth. He didn't want to go back to his mom's. Yeah, and I agree, Michelle. And I think there are tons of ways to get involved, even when you're in homeschool. And I told you guys before, I was a manager out at a hotel. And we would house the kids for certain tournaments that they had. Like one of them was a basketball tournament, and they were all in the hotel. One of them, one time, the kids flipped the mattress over in the room, and it looked like a rock band stayed in there. And I got a phone call in the morning. But, there's a lot of things that the homeschool network of children, they do offer a lot for the kids. And any type of change for anyone is going to be uncomfortable. Hey, Ida Anthony, good to see you. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, Oh, okay. Seth says, no, I drove myself to North Carolina. Thank you, Seth, because I know a lot of people have been really thinking about that and talking about it. And I appreciate you saying that, because then, of course, my wheels start turning, and I'm like, well, did he actually? And see, this is my thing with my skepticism, right? Did he actually see this young man? Or, it comes in, and I start thinking about it then, right? Hey, little Miss Sharon, good to see you. The people that suspect Seth have lost their mind, in my opinion. Mama Rissa, I cannot fathom it, besides it just being a vindictive act. I mean, just a vindictive act. Because anybody with logic and common sense can look at this case and see what's going on here. Mima for the missing children, Crabtree and TL. Yeah, those were my guesses too, off the bat. Yeah, because I was like, oh, okay, good. Well, I try to do my own research and things like that, and that's where it's leading me to, which is not good, Babs, I agree here too. Seth has zero motive or reason to do anything to his son. I agree. But we see a snowball effect, right? We see a snowball. There are so many issues going on in the Proudfoot home. So many issues. Like here. Chris and Katie at that time had full responsibility of taking care of Sebastian Rogers. Due to an open CPS investigation, Crispy could not be around Sebastian Rogers. Kit Kat, which is Katie, right? I thought that was funny too. has no real alibi that can be verified. And I'm here to tell you guys, I would give you everything you wanted. If I was Katie, it would be like, what do you need to, what do I need to do to prove to you that I had nothing to do with this? Yes, please be respectful, guys, in the chat. Be respectful. We got to have order in that chat, please. And if you disagree, it's okay, but, you know, do it in a respectful manner, please. I'm thinking, well, because it was June last year. Mama Marissa says, Chris being so quiet, I'm sure his daughter is here now. Yeah, I think so. Because he did say last year that he was going to go quiet when his daughter came. Well, hello, SI officer. Good to have you. Hello, hello. Yeah, allegedly there was no indication that would not be doing so. Or that they would not be doing so. It's crazy if they do have faith, right, Kiki? I mean, it's sad. It's sad if you think about it, because especially if they're doing that whole dog thing with her. Because everybody knows that a little kid is going to want their little puppy, right? And that's like so manipulative. It's, oh God, it just chaps my ass. I'll tell you what. Sammy says, I went through all of the Craddock's financial disclosures to date. Nothing overt disclosed. Interesting. Thank you. Hey, Captain Jules, good to see you. She says Seth is the only one who has been vocally advocating for Sebastian since day one. Always been Sebastian's voice. Always, always. And he has to have someone to do that, Jules. Thank you so much. And I agree. I agree. No billboards, really, Kiki? Oh, well, dang. That's a shame. Michelle says, I'm trying to clean up and see if I can bring any of the pics a little clearer if I can. Yeah, the pictures are really hard, right? When you're especially when you're sending them back and forth and things like that, or if you're trying to present them, it is difficult. But thanks for working on that, Michelle. That's really important, I think. Hey, Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom. Good to have you. Sorry I'm late. No problem. I'm glad you're here. She says, hope everyone had a great 4th. It was a good 4th of July for me. I did too. I hope you guys did too, Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom. Aw. See, this is what I'm discussing. Is Seth had anything to do with this? Why extend the finances or energy to return Sebastian and only to harm him? It's illogical. Yeah, I agree. Seclusion works. That's a really great point. You know, that's a really great point. And that's just another reason why it's not feasible. It doesn't make any sense. And that's what Chris's title was, do the math, you know, illogical and counterintuitive as well. I agree. Seclusion works. Absolutely. Michelle Scott says, Sammy G, how can EC deputy sheriff then 130,000 owes 4 houses, put 2 in his wife's name. Those sheriff sales, if houses must be good deals. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, and she wasn't on his friends list when I looked, Michelle, but he had other real estate agents, and he also had a lot of people in the loan industry, which is odd for a sheriff, in my opinion, because I don't have any sheriffs on my Facebook page that followed me from real estate. Not one single one. Not one single one. So it's odd to me, you know. Bernie Allen says, if my son ever went missing, you bet your bottom dollar I would be out searching and would accept all the help I could get to help find him. It's very disturbing that KP has not done anything. I agree, Bernie, I do. And I would be the same way. You know, I would be out there. I would accept help from anyone. You know, I mean, yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't stop, and I would always be a voice, and nothing the police ever did would be good enough for me until they brought me answers. You know, and I would try not to be rude to them, of course, but, you know, there's a breaking point. And I know that I would hit that threshold very early on. You know, one thing that's not a virtue is patience for me, and I really try to work on it, because I know things happen in their own time, and I do understand that, but I don't want to wait. So Kiki says, in my opinion and research, I feel it's a big group of people benefiting from home sales and such. Yeah, I agree. And there's been a history of that type of corruption within the area as well. And I did do a live on that, you know, but let's see here. What do we have? Oh, okay. So yeah, no real alibi has been verified, you know, and we're going to get into, you know, Fish Sticks, because Fish Sticks, he could have actually, and, you know, that's SF Investigates, if nobody knows, but he didn't even give us that. Like, I was fully expecting him to come out and be like, boom, motherfuckers, this is, you know, you're wrong. Katie was here. Here's her data from her iWatch. Here's, you know, here's Chris and his boss has made this statement, or, you know, here's some footage of him. Nothing. And as a matter of fact, he made this big to-do about going on Lore Lodge, and he totally bombed it. I mean, he looked like a complete fool. Didn't have receipts for anything. The one receipt that he did produce, it took him a long time to get to it. It's not like he was prepared, you know, but he did not help Chris and Katie, even though he really turned into more of a PR guy for them, you know. Hey, Meow, good to have you. That department needs to hand over what they've been doing to a higher authority. In my opinion, it's minimal, and that's a flag. I agree, Adam Forever 21. Really well said. And, you know, I think they do. I agree here that, you know, with what Chris is saying, I mean, they know they dropped the ball. And he was talking about how they were only operating off of one assumption. And we talk about that here a lot of times too, because it does bother me. It does bother me a lot. Ooh, a shakedown at the prison, huh, Jules? Bless says it's actually very frustrating that a court in New Mexico would allow visitation in a home with CPS cases and a missing child. I agree, Bless. I don't know what they are thinking. I really don't, because poor little Faith doesn't deserve to be having to be in that environment scared, you know, and a dog, okay. But I think, again, that was leverage, you know. Yeah, and we did get confirmation on that tonight, hon. We did. You know, Seth said he went there himself, so he knows that young man in North Carolina was not Sebastian. You know, and I understand it's hard, especially if you think, you know, something, you know, so strongly, and I understand that. I do. But yeah, he went there, so. Thank you, Meow, for hitting the like button. Thank you so much. Bab says patience is the worst for me, my only bad trait. right? I'm like that too, though, because I'm like, oh boy, I'm like very impatient. You know, even when something's loading on my phone, I'm like, come on, and I'm like, you just gotta chill. And if you sit there and stare at it, it's not gonna make it load any faster. Holly S says greed. I think that is the biggest one here. Like I said, $15,000 to do nothing. He didn't even help you guys out. If anything, he made you look more suspicious, and you guys gave him 15 grand. I'd probably be quiet too if I was you. I'd sit down, because that's absolutely bonkers. SF says yes, or excuse me, SI officer says yes, and we know exactly why they discourage and refuse to help. Yes, I do. Yes. And I think a lot of us know. I think a lot of us are like, wait a minute here. No way. It is horrifying, blessed. Yeah, see, Holly knows. And, this other slide that I pulled in from Chris, just really good ones, literally driving a wedge between them. Seth was going to get custody, but school issues arose, right? And we kind of talked about this earlier, where, Sebastian was supposed to go even earlier to live with his dad, but the school issue came up where Sebastian was, waitlisted, and he had to wait, and we heard Chris last time, I pulled in the clip where he was asked point blank by Smiley, and Katie was asked the same question. She was free to answer. They were both on the panel, and it took them too long to answer. Chris repeated the question back to Smiley, and then even then Katie didn't say no until after Chris said no, as if she was waiting to see what he would say first. I mean, no mother does that. And I would be so angry with Chris if he hesitated. And that was my, and he's my husband, and they're asking me if my child is a burden to our marriage. I'd say, hell no. No way. Sebastian, he's just a sweet, cute kid, and I can't even fathom it. I really can't. Mama Marissa says, lady, that is one of our favorites. Hindsight and I sit down. It is, though. It's like, if you're going to do that, you might as well not even say anything, because it really made them look worse, Hey, Zena, thanks for being here. Zena says, I don't understand, if your child is not a runner, then why say he ran away when you were sleeping? Yeah, that's a great point, Zena. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, and they told everybody that, Sebastian's never run away before. He wasn't even in trouble. Those statements, we went over those too, because those were all really odd. Holly S., she might very well be worse than him. If I never saw the Texas Roadhouse footage, and then if I never heard Katie so vocal about standing up for herself on the phone call when it was Chris and Katie with Heather Cohen, I would have really thought she was a meek person that maybe was afraid of Chris. But after seeing that, I'm like, no, she showed just as much disdain for Sebastian as anyone in the Texas Roadhouse video, in my opinion. Not letting him have another role. I mean, I know, guys, maybe not to spoil his dinner, but I don't know. That really rubbed me the wrong way, and I don't know. Adam Forever 21 says we need to keep pushing higher investigations. Authorities, Ellie has wasted precious time. One detective and this is unacceptable. I agree. And, you know, that's why I think writing to Dan Bongino will be a good next step. You know, and I am trying to get you guys riled up. I am. And, you know, the reason why is because I want you to be riled up, and I want you to write a letter when you're riled up, you know, because that'll be the best letter. It is for me anyway. You know, all I have to do is go listen to one of Chris's old interviews with, you know, any of them, and it'll get me amped up enough, you know. But painting this picture, because it's just so bad. You know, it's like Chris Carr was alleged to have said, it's bad, it's so bad. You know, it is. Well, I agree with that too, Babs. To call Katie a mother is an insult to real mothers who love, nurture, and care for their kids 24/7, right? And who wouldn't allow for any of this. None of it. I mean, if you don't like my kid, you're to the curb, buddy. To the left, right? And shit would be packed for him. I'd be like, here's your stuff, you know. But that's a deal breaker for me, you know. And some of these things need to be deal breakers for these moms, because you got to remember your kid is more important than the husband. And, you know, I don't care how well he provides monetarily. Oh, let me take down this pesky banner here. But it says, who really was the burden with Sebastian Rogers? Seth only saw Sebastian a few days a month, right? So if it's every other weekend, that would break down to about 4 or 5 days, right? But, you know, like Seth would say, he'd get off work and he'd go over and drive over and get Sebastian, and then they would spend the weekend. And then Sunday night, he'd have to be back for school on Monday, so they probably had an earlier night. And he was dropped off at, you know, at mom's house accordingly, right? So he could have the time to get ready for school the next day. And that's another thing that's missing from Katie's story. You know, 6:03, she goes to wake him up, and he's got to be at the bus at 7. You know, I know we've talked about this several times, but I mean, you know, that's not a whole lot of time. And especially if you're not prepared from the night before. If you're prepared from the night before, then yeah, if you've already taken your shower, then, you know, you might just have to get up, brush your teeth, and eat, you know, and then grab your backpack and be out the door, right? And he's a boy. I mean, I'm sure he's not spending hours in front of the mirror getting ready for high school like some of us young girls did, you know, when we were younger. You know, he's a boy. So maybe, you know, wet your hair down again and get it, you know, combed up and brush your teeth. And that's probably, you know, you're good to go. Get your clothes on. Now, if everything's already set out and ready, that makes it, you know, less time. But we didn't hear about that. Also, Sebastian was taking medication, so he would have to probably get something in his belly before he went to school and took his medication, because a lot of those will make your stomach upset if you don't eat. Some of them suppress your appetite, and so after he took them, he might not be as hungry. But we don't hear anything about that. We don't hear about anything like that, which is very concerning. You know? Sammy G says there's a live that CP is on where he's playing with a tape recorder and accidentally hits play on the recording, where KP is saying, "No, my husband does not abuse me. It was really weird. Anybody hear it?" No, I have not heard that. Well, and you know, I would argue that I think your husband does abuse you, Katie. I think it's, I think your husband does abuse you, Katie. I think that emotional abuse is just as bad as knocking you around. I really do. I think the psychological crap, I think him even bringing something to you like it's either me or your son is abusive. It is. It's definitely not a nice way to treat you. It's definitely not the way that you deserve to be treated. It's definitely not the way that Sebastian deserves to be treated. SI officer says CP is like an adult child, always throwing tantrums until he gets his way, and mommy dearest always pacifies the brat. I agree completely, and heaven forbid anybody breaks Chris's heart, because, oh gosh, he can't handle that. It's like we all been through heartbreak, please. But heaven forbid Chrissy ever has to feel bad. Holly S says Seth spent quality time with him, in my opinion, and KK, he was secluded and punished a lot, in my opinion. Yeah, Seth even said that, that what we see in the Texas Roadhouse was really kind of what was going on with Sebastian, and that's per a lot of the counseling notes that he was able to read after the fact. But that Sebastian would spend a lot of time by himself in his room, more like, get out of here, you're bugging us, kid, kind of a thing. And Sebastian was like, I really don't think that they like me very much, and I mean, he obviously heard the things that were being said. So of course that's the conclusion that he's going to come to. Like, mom doesn't like me, and neither does Mr. Chris. And mom used to like me before Mr. Chris came along, but now it's like she doesn't like me either. And what a horrible feeling for him. And he never deserved that. Not once. Hindsight says Sammy G, yes, that was the plan, to play that on a creators panel, because everyone kept asking where she had been. I have it on my channel. Okay, Hindsight, I'll go check it out. Wow, that is really interesting. But remember, Katie said she went through the whole house in 3 minutes flat looking for him. What the hell? Exactly. And they have, like, there's several bathrooms to go through. There's an upstairs, because it's kind of like a split level. So, like, there's a bonus room above the garage. So she would have had to make it all the way up the stairs and down the stairs. And I mean, no, I know. I agree. That is another thing that just doesn't add up. No, that's good, Sammy. I'm glad you brought that up, because I do. I think that, and a lot of times, guys, we don't want to believe, like, when we're in an abusive relationship. I'm not trying to shame Katie at all. I'm just saying you're being abused when somebody does that to you, whether, it's, they don't have to slap you or hit you or, any of the nasty things that those people do. For it to be abusive, there's a lot of ways that are very subtle, and sometimes those can be even worse in a way, because it's like people can't see that, right? They can't just look at you and be like, wow, what did he do to you? Or, oh my God, what happened to you? It's inside and nobody knows, and it just like festers, right? So oh, okay. SI officer says I heard it, and yes, it seemed like it was recorded. Very odd. Yeah, and I mean, they've done those kinds of things throughout the case, though. They have. And again, it's an insult to our intelligence, because when we hear it, then we can, we can all agree that, like, that's staged, right? It's not real. It's not genuine. SI officer says, lady, you have to find that one and play it, because it very much sounds like it's recorded. And then he goes into his active, oh, well, that was odd or weird or something to that effect. Okay. Yeah, see, and it's just like when he was saying, oh, I'm not, she says, he's not clapping, y'all, he's not clapping. And then he goes back and says, yeah, I'm at work, I know you can probably hear they're clapping, like as if people are down there giving him like a standing ovation. And really most people would be like, gross, Chris, Bab says, we've never heard anything after KP says Sebastian took out the trash, which I don't believe, and him playing in his room. Nothing about taking meds or shower, nothing at all. Exactly. And she even said he could stay up a little bit later. So you would think she would have him get everything, together, or the last hour that he got to stay up a little bit later, that was to get all of his stuff together for school. But just such a long day. And then also making sure they were on camera all day really bothers me too. There was a reason for that, in my opinion, to kind of build an alibi. Um, yeah, no shower before bed and they were out all day. Exactly, Kiki. And that really always bothered me because it just, you know, even though I know he's an older kid, it's not like he's little or, mom's got to help him in the shower. I'm sure he could go take his shower and things like that. And Seth has told us that he was independent that way and that he also liked to kind of sit in there with the steam and, he enjoyed that. It was relaxing for him. So why wouldn't that occur after a long day? Where he clearly, in my opinion, looks overstimulated when they get to the restaurant, closing off his ears and, that sort of thing. So, and it was probably a stressful situation at the bowling alley because he had his heart set on bowling and then the leagues were playing, so he didn't get to bowl. He had to do the arcade instead. And, typically that might be okay, but again, when we have a child who's on the spectrum, it may really upset his day having that kind of unexpected thing occur, Oh, great, Mama Marissa. I'm gonna go listen to it. Wow. So and I wonder, is that new? Is that something new that they just put out? That's interesting. Well, yeah, that's a great point too. Hindsight says wouldn't put it past him, but he played it off as a joke. Yeah, and it's not funny. I mean, people are serious and they're concerned about Katie when they ask that question. I mean, it's not a joke. I mean, I don't take it lightly. I mean, again, I think that Katie had involvement in what happened to Sebastian, but I would never wish that on her. I don't want to see it. It doesn't make me happy. It actually makes me sad. It breaks my heart for her, and I would never want her to, because she deserves better than that. Everybody does. There's not one single person that deserves to be abused or harmed or hurt. It's the other person's nastiness that is the reason that happens. In my opinion, Crispy Mouth had sketchy people from New Mexico. He paid to help place him somewhere, and he talked KP into going along with it. That's why he runs the narrative. That's why they don't. Sorry here. And that's why they don't push looking, in my opinion. That's interesting, Adam Forever 21. I mean, I think Chris knows a lot of sketchy people. It sounds like he does anyway, which is weird because you wouldn't expect that from someone who is in the military. You wouldn't expect to see that. I don't. Very true. Bab says, and Katie has never said, I love you too, to what he said. Sebastian was hollering from his room, chilling. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's always been really odd, right? I agree, Babs, that he didn't, that Katie didn't say, he said goodnight to me and the puppies, and I said I love him too. And, that is so weird. SI officer says, we definitely feel that he does control and manipulate and abuse you regardless of what, regardless of what way it may be, physical, mental, emotional, in our opinion. Yeah, exactly, SI officer. That's really well said. And that's it. It might not be a physical situation, although, we looked at the one picture and she did appear to have a shiner, I mean, you can get a shiner from different things, right? But yeah, and definitely the I mean, you could even argue that even that very subtle, just like arguing with you about something that is absolutely true, but you're, when it, and I'm referring to when they talk about whether a school night is on Sunday or not, whether that's a weekend night or a school night, and he's just going on and he's like, yeah, whatever, and like he's just picking a fight with her, in my opinion. What does it matter? What does it matter? She's telling her side and you're not letting her talk. And you could tell Katie was getting frustrated with it. I would be. I'd be like, can I say something? Or is that going to be too much? Like, you had a chance to talk. And honestly, and I hate to break it to Chris. I know he's very fragile, but guess what? We don't want to hear from you. We don't care what you have to say. If you weren't home, then stop talking, because we don't care. It doesn't make a difference to us what you have to say if you weren't there. Now, if you were there, that would be different. But it's all about the spotlight for Chris, right? He thinks he's going to break the internet and all of that weird stuff. Oh, and if I come on your show, you're going to have so many people. Yeah, people want to see what's going to happen in the shit show. And you're doing that on purpose. So, Seclusion Work says, wouldn't Sebastian be overwhelmed after a busy day? I would think so. I would be overwhelmed after a day like that. I would be ready. I wouldn't even go out to eat. I would not go out to eat. I would get a pizza. I just know myself. I'd be like, you want to go home and watch a movie, or something. Like, I'd be ready to just chill then, because that is a long day, waking up, making breakfast, calling the family, going back and forth to the store, and, going out to the arcade. I'd have been ready to just go home. And, they bought snacks. Why did, maybe that was for school lunch. I don't know. Well, and it is very troubling. And I can't for the life of me figure out if they're covering their own ass or if they're covering for Chris and Katie. But Holly S. says, very troubling that Ellie seems to be covering for them. Yeah, and I think they dropped the ball and they know it. And I think they don't want to admit, Holly S. says, yeah, Seclusion, 100%. In my opinion, he'd be exhausted. I'm just surprised Katie wasn't also exhausted. And then knowing they had to get up early, Well, and that's another thing, Holly S. Thanks for bringing it up, because I agree. She says, I truly believe he was being recorded 24/7. And we heard about the cameras. And even Nina was asking about cameras, Yeah, I think Chris controlled the situation from afar because he wasn't allowed to be there, and he didn't see Sebastian since February 1st. Katie told that to Smiley. You would want to talk to him, Mama Marissa says, I would give anything to talk to Chris. I'm fearless. You are. I told him he's not allowed to come on the show. I told him he's not allowed to. Because I was so angry when he went on Web Sleuths and he was given the platform to just be rude to Trisha and be rude to everybody on the panel, and her assistant or maybe her co-host was a very nice person, right? They weren't being rude to him. They were being very nice and accommodating towards him. And he was being absolutely rude. And then he was calling them web sluts. And I'm going, what in the world is happening right now? And they're like, we're sorry, Chris. And they're groveling. And I'm like, I could never do that. I would have just told him, you're the weakest link. Bye-bye. I mean, I couldn't have it. The minute he started being rude to me, I would just end it, but Smiley did a hell of a job with him because she was able to stay calm and, cool about it. But oh my gosh, I would have, not done that well. I just know it. But you would have to keep it, keep calm and stuff. Little Miss Sharon says, why has no one interviewing CP or KP asked, did Sebastian brush his teeth? Maybe just me, but I would ask that question. Yeah, I think it's a valid question, right? Because we don't hear about him doing anything about the nighttime routine, right? Which you would think he would already have in place. He's 15, and he's self-sufficient. It seems like he was coming home and after school and taking care of himself until Katie got home. Same thing with Seth. He was taking care of himself when Seth was at work. And so, yeah, you would think he would already have his routine down. That is a very great point. And I don't know. All those little things would be really good to ask him if he was willing to come up. And even Katie, if she was willing to come up and just answer these little questions that, are well after the fact. I get that, but would you be willing to answer questions? I would have Katie on my panel. Katie is welcome to come up here because Katie has not been as disrespectful as Chris. I just can't handle him. I can't. And so, yeah, absolutely. If Katie was willing to come up here and talk with me, I would definitely have her here, and I'd ask you guys to be respectful to her, and we would talk. But Chris, I just can't do it with him. I mean, I'd like to say some things too. It wouldn't be fair though, because I would just tear his head off, and then I'd kick him off the panel, and that's not fair, or professional. So, hindsight says, Mom Marissa, it would be respectful and informative to say the least. Yes, and I know that and I know that Mama Marissa would be absolutely respectful, and so it probably could work. I just know it wouldn't work with me because I would just get, hey, Bo, nice to see you. I would just get, I don't know, maybe too much in my feels, or maybe it's just pent up anger and I just unleash it. I don't know. Bab says the call to LE was 6:33. What was going on until then? It's a long window of time, isn't it, Babs? I agree. She flew through the neighborhood around the school in about 10 minutes total. Yeah. And, it wasn't like she was driving slow or with her, windows rolled down. I'd have them all rolled down. I'd be screaming bloody murder, I just would be. I would be beside myself. And I mean, I've not ever been in a position, and I hope I never am, where I've lost a kid, like that my child, somebody that I've taken care of, I babysat for kids and things like that. And I just have never lost them, or even they didn't even go out of my vision, right? Because if I'm caring for them and I'm supposed to be the one taking care of them, I'm watching after them. I'm going to make sure that I can produce the child when the parent comes back, or my child is safe, so I really don't get this. And then on top of that, had my child gone missing on my watch, I would absolutely feel so guilty. I wouldn't be able to be snarky or rude or petulant. I would be very humble and very I don't even know what the word is, but I would be groveling for people to please forgive me for losing my child, right? Because I would feel so bad. And maybe that's that Catholic guilt. That's possibly it. But Bless says, that poor child, my prayer is that he did run away from that house of horrors. My heart breaks for him. I know, Bless. And that was one thing I said in the beginning, was that, I believe that Sebastian had enough reasons to leave, and maybe even leave without shoes because he was trying to get away, right? But without there being any footage, that's where I'm hung up on, Adam Forever 21 says, in my opinion, I don't believe they hurt him. I believe they put him somewhere. Oh, okay. So they didn't have to raise him. Plus, they didn't want Seth knowing stuff. Well, and that's very possible. I mean, the schools out there that will hold a child and be so secretive is definitely something that is worrisome, Bernie Allen says, does anyone remember KP started, does anyone remember that KP stated it was very dark out that night? Very interesting statement to make. Yeah, I remember, Bernie, and I actually was like, yeah, duh, Katie, it's dark everywhere at night. That's what happens, and I was very, talk about snarky. But, it is odd. It's like setting it up. It's like when Malaya Brooks Murray said, they went out the door, but we couldn't hear it because you can't hear the door open and close, right? It's like, it's over-explaining, telling too much, setting up for why something else happens later, right? And whenever people do that, they're almost always trying to manipulate the situation or tell a lie. So, yeah, great catch, because I agree, Bernie. Bab says, and let's not forget him calling in sounding like Sling Blade character. What the hell? Chris is sick in the head. And Katie knew about that. Like, she thought it was funny. They were laughing, pineapples. I'm like, I have a really good sense of humor, guys. You guys probably know me by now. Like, my slapstick comedy, I think that's hilarious. I find a lot of things to be really funny and silly, and but I don't think I would think any of this was funny or silly. If my husband was calling into shows and basically shitting on an investigation for my son, I would definitely not think it was funny. I would divorce his ass really fast. It's probably why I'm not married. Detroit I'd probably be divorced again. No, Detroit Rock City, it's good to see you. Detroit Rock City says, hello, everyone. Just got done watching Josh and Dr. Gray. Ooh, okay, Chris M. Awesome. Great live. Ooh, I'll go over and watch. My phone's charging, so I'll be listening. Oh, I need to go over and watch Josh then. I love Josh's lives. He does such a great job. And I love Chris McDonough, you guys know. And then I see Dr. Gary in the chat a lot, too. Bo says they couldn't wait 3 minutes, or 3 more months, excuse me. They couldn't wait 3 more months for him to go to Seth's. I don't get that. 3 months. I know, it's kind of maddening, isn't it? I mean, just knowing that they wouldn't have to have dealt with Sebastian, and I'm saying that for them. I think Sebastian's wonderful, but they wouldn't have had to deal with him for much longer, right? And then why do this? I mean, and the only thing I can think of too in that regard is because of the problem that seems to have been between Chris only and Sebastian being around Faith. No one else had an issue with it besides Chris. And that was the narrative they were trying to push. But I think CPS was a big deal too. I think that, the fact that Seth probably wasn't aware of what was really going on, and that he was going to become aware of it, may have caused some issues on that front, and they couldn't chance that, excuse me. He did. Yeah, Holly S., I agree. In my opinion, he got to rest and relax at Seth's. Yeah, he didn't have to walk on eggshells, I mean, do I think that Seth seems like a strict dad? Yeah, I think he seems strict in certain things, and I'm like that too as a mom. There, I mean, there were things with my daughter that, she knew. It's like, if I tell you no, it's no, and we're not arguing about it. This isn't a debate. This is what's going to happen. And I didn't have to beat her, and as a matter of fact, you'd be, it's surprising how much a child can really understand if you explain it to them, and not beat them up and not yell at them and not make them feel bad and, not make them wear pull-ups. Megan L. says, in my opinion, all this happened because they wanted Sebastian gone, because they wanted Faith. I think so too, Meg. That's a huge motive, right? And we're talking about means, motive, and opportunity, right? Because they obviously had the means, right? They had vehicles, they had people that would help them. They had a motive, which was not liking Sebastian, not wanting him around Faith, not wanting him to expose what was happening in the house, really happening in the house, right? Behind closed doors. And then the opportunity was that they had Sebastian that whole weekend, and I think that Proudfoot was absolutely in the area, that boss sounded like a freak. He was, I mean, totally, like, and then he was also being extremely rude, extremely rude to the PI. And all she's doing is trying to confirm. Like, she wasn't being rude to him. And then she was doing a little bit of like mirror matching and being like, yeah, we don't like those YouTubers, you know? Those YouTubers are a bunch of a-holes, you know? We can't stand those guys, you know? And I'm sure they did feel like that about a lot of us. But yeah, who really was the burden? I think that's plain to see. Who thought Sebastian was a burden? And it wasn't Seth. And Seth probably would have been just fine and dandy with having more time with Sebastian. And that's really ultimately what he wanted. Now we're going to get into some of the hilarity, guys, but it's the truth. And this is what I find to be funny. If you want a real knee slapper, Chris spends all of his time trolling through YouTube. I mean, he is so ridiculous. Like, he'll literally be in all of the chats, just lurking and, oh, I can't believe they're saying that about me. Well, then do something. Like, get off your bum and do something for your son. Excuse me, stepson. But, you know, to me, if you're a step parent and if you're living with the kid most of the time, treat that child like that's actually your son. Like, you actually give a damn about that kid. And especially if he has so many struggles and you know, that he may need assistance in other areas where some other children his age wouldn't. That would make me extra protective, guys. That would make me like, nobody's hurting this kid. And it doesn't matter if I birthed that child or not. It would be nobody's hurting him. And if you even make a snide remark at him, I swear to God, you know, I mean, it's one of those. And I do feel strongly about that, you know. Oh, that's a good point. Megan says, I agree. SI officer, CPS, and excuse me, the CPs, and right before court has me stuck on that being why. Yeah. I mean, it gets me stuck on that being why too. Not only because of that, but also because they were saying things like, if people knew what Sebastian was really like, they wouldn't look for him. Who says that? But where is he? Where? You know? Sammy says, just generally, CP has said, you are loved, I love you, we love you, etc. But I think at most KP has said, I would say, or I would want to say, we love you. Hope I'm wrong, but yeah, I mean, Sammy, I've heard her say that too. I would say, we love you. Yeah, she said that. Well, because people were asking them if you could say something to Sebastian, like if he can hear you right now, what would you say to him? Absolutely. I thought the snacks were for the big fun Alaska trip that he was excited about. Well, you know, possibly. And he did jump on panel as fast as he could when that was brought into play, right? You know? I just realized that the flashlight pic I have been looking at is not from the neighbor's house down on the corner, because it shows their garage head on, and the garage is on the other side of her work truck. Yeah, well, and they had those floodlights on their house too over there. Is kind of how I identify it. Detroit's all for the Chris Proudfoot interview with Mama Marissa. I am too. Chris is a titty baby. Mama's been bailing him out of stuff all his life. I'd never be able to have a conversation with him ever. I know. Oh my gosh, Babs. But I would talk to Katie. I would, but I can't handle he's so disrespectful that I would be so, you guys would be like, gosh, Lady Freedom, I thought you were a nice person. Like, he would bring the worst out in me. He would, but he spends all of his time on here, and it's the weirdest thing ever. Hey, Mosquito Bite says, I still want more info on Sebastian Rogers that posted that video on Facebook in January. Yeah, I'd like more information on that as well. Yeah. I mean, and people are going to keep coming out with information. It's only a matter of time, There you go. Mute. Hindsight. That's a good one. That's what I would want to do. See, I'd want them to call me from 2 different places. If they had to come up on the panel, that would be acceptable. And then I could just mute Chris, and then Katie would. Chris, you're more than welcome to sit up here, but we're going to have to mute you, sir. That's funny. See, that's funny to me. Mom Marissa says, Chris wouldn't want to be rude with me. I dealt with narcissistic men and women for years. I worked for doctors for years, and I never let any of them disrespect me. I put them in their place. Yes, Mom Marissa, and you have to. You really do. You can't allow them to do it. It's like, I guess it's kind of like some of us. If you give us an inch, we want a mile. But it's like, so if you tell us something, we might want more information. But with a narcissist, they are so like that. If you give them an inch, oh man, they'll take a mile. Bernie Allen says, in my opinion, I believe that when KP said she ran back, then corrected herself, that she indeed was in person running back to the house in the flashlight video and gave herself away with the statement. Wow, Bernie, that's really interesting. Yeah, because then she's like, I ran back. I mean, I drove. Yes. So you think she slipped right there and was going back to that night? I don't see how your brain couldn't go back to that night, especially with how awful I believe it was. Yes, it was taken from under something and was an older woman possibly working in a garden or something. Yeah, I remember that. And it was supposedly Sebastian's YouTube page. And he was hiding, it looks like, underneath like a deck or something. Kiki says CP is the kind of guy my husband, which is a big guy, would not get along with. Exactly, Kiki. Well, and then he's, saying, well, somebody said I won't talk to women. Well, yeah, or talk to men. I'll only talk to women. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not what you're showing us, though. You're threatening women, like, first of all, Seth's sister, and then you threatened his mother, and then you threatened Bobby the neighbor, and then you threatened Smiley. I mean, the list goes on. And God only knows how many people he fought with on Facebook, because he was going back and forth with people on Facebook even. And it was like, what are you doing? Hindsight says Mom Marissa toe to toe. I would lose my shit talking to Crispy and Kit Kat, Mama Mima for the missing says. Oh Lord. I would too. I would try to keep my cool, but I don't know how long it would last. Tina Girl, absolutely. They've made fun of Sebastian since he went missing. Thanks for being here, Tina Girl. How awful. Who does that? And they think it's funny. Babs, it's true, Babs says, lady, I just thought about that. Why would a mom allow her husband to go online in chat rooms and talk shit about her son and just lie and lie? I mean, because he's making them look worse. And then the things that he recently said were just like unbelievable. And he literally lost his SHIT on panel and started making like all those weird noises like, hey, ho, ho. And it was like, what in the world is happening right now? Is he having a come apart? Because I think he's having a come apart. that saying, I'm going to come unglued. Yeah, he came unglued for sure. He was busting at the seams. And like, that's the thing with Chris is like, he doesn't even have the self-awareness to realize what he's doing in public and how he's going to be perceived until maybe he watches it back or something, you know? It's crazy. Hey, Forget Me Not. Oh, here it is. Okay. Detroit Rock City says, I believe he tried to run, but he got caught and they did something in the heat of the moment because their plan went south. In my opinion, something went wrong that weekend for sure, in my opinion. Well, and I'm wondering about the poker party too, Detroit Rock City, because that's another one that really makes me wonder if something happened there. You know, something must have happened there. Oh, good. I will go over and rewatch Josh. I love Josh. He does such a great job too. He's another one that just, well, he's funny as hell, but then also he does really, I like his coverage. Megan L says, nope, I don't think he's a strict dad. I think he's a control freak and an abuser and a horrible asshole of a person. Oh, shit. Yeah. No, and I was talking about Seth being strict. Because I think he is to a certain degree. I don't think he's like willy-nilly. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Seth's a pushover dad. You know, like, because some parents, you know, or like the dynamic in a house might be you'll have, you know, like a good cop, bad cop, right? And that's really a good dynamic to have, because you kind of need someone to be heavier than the other one. Usually it's the father in the household. In my opinion, I'm more, you know, old fashioned, I guess, but that all changed for me when I became a single mother, because no one was going to tell my kid what to do, you know, in that regard. May have been why I was single for so long, but I wasn't going to allow for that ever. And, you know, you're not going to come into our lives and make it a freaking train wreck again. Bab says Sebastian's favorite place was at school, where he left, or where he felt loved, accepted, enjoyed his friends, felt protected, and didn't have to pretend to anyone. Really well said, Babs. Not being caught in the middle of the BS. Yeah, and he could be comfortable there, you know. Absolutely. And you could tell he was well liked. Even though Chris and Katie wanted us to, well, I mean, I don't know what they wanted us to think. They wanted us to like think that he wasn't, though, you know, that nobody liked him, you know. I agree, Meg. Meg says sorry, not sorry. I agree. He made himself out to be that person, right? I mean, it's from what he told us. Detroit Rock City says the thing that stands out to me is the bite marks and scratches on CP's arm, and that makes me think that there was a struggle, in my opinion. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and gosh, as horrible as this is, you know, even little Bella Watts was said to have fought back against her dad, you know, and she was only a little girl. So to think that Sebastian didn't fight back is, you know, I will never believe that. I will believe that he did fight back. You know. Let's see. Kit Kat and Crispy only did interviews on the anniversary and one TV special, right? And in the TV special that they did, they weren't in Sebastian's room. They were at some other place, like totally different, playing with toys on the counter. Megan L says, and KP is no mother hearing her husband speak so horribly about her son. Exactly, Meg. And she laughed about it. She thought it was funny. She was like, oh, yeah, that's great. That's so funny. You know, knowing that he was disparaging Sebastian, making fun of him, you know. Exactly. Sebastian wanted friends coming from a grown-ass man who speaks so poorly of him, couldn't even be his friend, Could you, Mr. F and Chris? Yeah, he couldn't be his friend. He wasn't out there doing things with him in the yard. He wasn't throwing a football back and forth with him. He wasn't out playing catch with the baseball and the mitt. You know? I mean, it's absolutely crazy. And then they don't do the interviews. They just decide, oh, well, we're not going to do those. That's not important. You know, let's not show his room. And again, I know the moms out there that have children who have passed away. They keep their room the way it was, you know. GA64, good to see you, says, what panel was CP on that he said Sebastian would come back when he was 18? You know, I don't know if that was Granny's watching or who that was. We also have this one that says, if they believed he wandered off, why haven't we heard about a search? Exactly. And this is a really great point, because if Sebastian was missing and they think that he just walked off somewhere and he went somewhere on his own, wouldn't they be searching any type of route that they thought he possibly could have gone? But we never hear about that. It's like they don't care. They don't care to do it, you know? They just don't. They just don't care. Sammy says, yes, he was well liked. Every time I see those kids lined up and the stuff that they made for Sebastian Rogers' birthday makes me tear up. Yeah, he had a lot of love. He had a lot of love at school, you know, and the fact that he liked school tells me that. Because if he didn't like school, then I'd say, well, is he being bullied? You know? Why doesn't he like school? You know? And those bite marks were 8 weeks old when we saw them. Imagine, 8 days. Yeah, 8 days old. Imagine what they would have looked like fresh. Oh, exactly, little Miss Sharon. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it's right there. Oh, thanks for dropping links, guys. Yes. I mean, it's right there in front of us, and they match up. You know? They match up. And then we also have here, if they believed he wandered off, why haven't they searched for him? Currently, cases 3 years old, mothers are still looking for their missing children. And, you know, this is going back again to a comparison with other cases and how other mothers are acting who really don't know where their children are. So my question for Katie is, where is Sebastian? Where is he, Katie? Because you know where he is, or you'd be searching for him. It's really that simple. All right, guys. So now we're going to get into fish sticks, and we're calling SF Investigates fish sticks. So he is a seasoned fish stick, right? He's found quite a few people in missing persons cases and is sought out by parents for help, right? So when Chris and Katie decided to hire SF Investigates, or when he came on the scene, I was pretty shocked, right, that they were trying to enlist some help from someone like SF Investigates, because as, you know, was spoke about last night on Chris's live, you know, he does have the experience level to find a missing child. So I thought, okay, well, that's good. At least they're doing something on their end. But then he basically became a PR agent for the prod feed, and he wasn't doing a very good job at it, right? So my theory is they hired SF Investigates, and Chris was calling the shots, and, you know, he was basically like, you know, the gopher for Chris and just doing whatever Chris wanted him to do, you know, and that's my opinion. That's what he was doing. He was basically a yes man to Chris. And, you know, he made a fool out of himself. Again, another person who could have had a good reputation, arguably. I know that he did some, you know, fuckery in the Rodney case. I know that. But, you know, it seems like he was okay to do it over here too. And he did. And he ruined his reputation, in my opinion, because he's gone. And I hadn't heard anything come out of his mouth for the longest, but we'll get to that. Fish Sticks has found quite a few missing people, right? Sought out to help, but he basically became the PR agent, and allegedly Kit Kat and Fish Sticks were made a big scene at the Texas Roadhouse over the surveillance video that we have come to know as the Texas Roadhouse video from February 25th, 2024. And it's very bizarre. Like, why would you run over there and raise hell? Why is Katie over there with a PI that could have been over there with her well before that to get the footage? Why were they raising hell just because the other side got the footage? Again, it just looks really, really bad on them. Really, really bad. He has never found any useful information in the Sebastian Rogers case. Not one bit of information that's been useful. Not one bit to help us solve what happened to Sebastian. And as a matter of fact, he muddied the waters so much that he comes out with a video telling us all its evidence, but it was already deemed, you know, irrelevant by law enforcement very early on. And if he was any kind of PI, then he would have recognized that and known that, and he never would have passed it off as new evidence, but he did nevertheless. So, you know, to me, he did not help the situation. He made it worse. He did not help Chris and Katie or our understanding of their roles in what happened to Sebastian Rogers. He just made everything worse. And we haven't heard anything from him. Except for a couple of weeks ago on Grace's Gavel. She has a second channel, so she pretends like she cares about missing people on Grace's Gavel, and then she turns around and goes to Krama Chronicles, where she is nothing but pure hate and evil and drama. This is her reviewing one of my lives. And underneath, and Krama Chronicles is a small channel. She's got 2,000 or something like that, right? Only about 2,000 people. But this Tiffany Franks, aka Grace's Gavel, aka Chronicles, has SF Investigates writing underneath the video about me. So he doesn't give a crap about Sebastian anymore. He took his $15,000 and ran. And he's writing about me, saying that I have warrants for my arrest. Oh, yes, I do. Oh, no, I don't. Or I would be in jail, SF. Are you really that stupid? And by the way, go try to find missing kids and stop trying to defame my character. But this is what he's been up to, guys. Just like Crispy. Go into the hate channels, go into the Krama channels, whatever you want to call it, and running around. Acting like a damn fool. Spreading lies. Defaming and slandering people. Talking about how you're going to help my stalker. Really, SF? That's what you've been reduced to because your reputation is so badly tarnished that you're trying to spread lies about me? A creator that only has 3,000 people? Very odd behavior. Calling me perjurous, but you're helping a guy who has not only one, but 2 orders of protection currently out against him. And yes, folks, he was harassing yet another woman, not just me, harassing another woman, and she got a restraining order against him before I did. Had I only known that information, I would have given it to the judge. So, I hate to tell you, Steve Fisher, but even though you and Katie ran to the Texas Roadhouse and you made a scene and you raised hell and upset the staff and upset whoever owns the Texas Roadhouse, because you had to get that footage of Katie and her son eating. But why would you need that? All you did was show stills that really showed nothing. Was it because you knew that Katie looked like a horrible mother? Was it because you watched the footage and you understood that Katie looked really, really bad and that she was being horrible to Sebastian, pushing the menu at him like she did? Because this is the real footage that you should be worried about, is this car that was in the neighborhood. The same time that your clients tried to mess with the metadata, or excuse me, tried to mess with the timestamps. But I'm here to tell you that metadata doesn't lie. And it's imprinted on the photos and the videos, showing their exact origins. So messing with the timestamp does nada. You're not going to get away with it, because the metadata is always attached to the images. Always. It's always attached, and you can't change it, and neither can anyone else. Yeah, Fish Sticks is another good old boy, in my opinion, Kiki, for sure. Yeah, he's right there with Chris. You know, he's right there with, you know, the Aryan Brotherhood, apparently. Hey, I am Two Bear. Good to see you. Hey, Carla. Welcome in, everyone. Hey, Cinderelli. I can't even believe him, Kiki. I'm like going, what the heck is wrong with you? Like, somebody sent that to me. I had no idea that was being said. But I have that Florida license number. And believe me, they're going to find out what abuse how you're abusing your power. Absolutely. And they're going to know what kind of, you know, shit you did in Sebastian's case. Isn't that crazy? I am Two Bear. It's like, yeah, I'm embarrassed for him too. I thought that was so embarrassing. Like, just reading that, I'm like, what are you doing? That's a good point. Carla says, let's not forget that Sebastian disappeared on the anniversary of Katie's divorce to Seth, and that's not a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence at all. I think there's a very deep-seated hatred for Seth when it comes to Katie. And she never came out and said, no, SF, that's a lie. My ex-husband did not do that. Katie knew what it showed. Absolutely, Babs. She knew what it showed. She knew that if the public saw the way that she was acting towards Sebastian, that we would not like it. You know, and Silver's on the scene has spent more time searching for Sebastian Rogers than Kit Kat and Crispy. I mean, that's a fact. That's a fact, Jack. If you don't like it, change it. You don't want people talking about it, go out and help. Go out and search for your missing stepson, but you don't. Silver lives in a different state altogether, and he's never met Sebastian Rogers. So where you at, Katie? Where you at, Chris? Where's all of Sebastian's family members that like to go out and, go up against Nina? Boy, you guys know how to unite when it's something for evil, but if it's something for good, you're nowhere to be found. Katie's iWatch. Katie's Apple Watch has real estate up here in this head of mine. Because 8 days after, Sebastian's been missing, Katie doesn't have the Apple Watch anymore. And that can hold all of the data that, we're looking for. Hey, Baba Rose. Detroit Rock City says he is planning to escape because the heat is on and he is the boss of everything. He's going to lose it. It's just a matter of time, in my opinion. I think so too, Detroit Rock City. That's one thing I was adamant about yesterday in Chris's chat. I was like, TikTok, Oh, I'm so sorry, Seclusion Works. My goodness. She was unalived? Oh my. I am so very sorry. That's right. We all work together to find answers. We have to. Katie's not telling us. She's not being truthful. If she was being truthful, then all of this information would be out there and she'd be working with us. And she's not. Baba Rose says, Crime Time Buzz said today that KK hugged Green Hoodie and KK gave her something at night, told her. Oh, wow. In my opinion, that was KK's mother. I mean, she looks like her. She looks a lot like the Green Hoodie, Baba Rose. I got her up here somewhere. Okay, here we go. There we go. I mean, that's Frances Rosenbaum right next to Katie. I think that she definitely resembles the Green Hoodie. Absolutely. Yeah. I just kind of want to give you guys a frame of reference there. That's interesting that there was a hug. And again, guys, this is just the timeline, right? The timeline that Chris had come up with on alibis, right? Why couldn't fish sticks do this? Oh, thank you, little Miss Sharon. Yeah, nowhere in sight for good. Yeah, nowhere. And I don't understand it. It's like they want us to think that they're good people, but they're not acting like it. Hey, Poppy Love. Can Apple give stored information from the watch? Yeah, and I'm thinking, I would think that law enforcement would have gathered that, but I also was wondering because I heard that it took them 2 weeks to even collect the phones, which when I put that all together, I'm like, okay, well, that's long enough for people to get rid of information off of their phones. Well, long enough. But when did they take all of their electronics, like the Apple Watch? And that's what I'm confused about, because she doesn't have it and she doesn't wear it until, June. And it might not even been the same watch that she had that night, Hindsight says, Baba Rose, in my opinion, I agree. There was some form of a touch that occurred. Yeah, something. They were too close. And then that little space they had to get through. That they chose to go through that tiny little space when there was all a big space, where Sebastian got into the car. And the fact that the Green Hoodie stuck around, way too long. Especially if we're to believe that person needed to use the restroom. And that was the reason why they went to the Texas Roadhouse, was just to use the restroom. SI officer says, oh, preach. And it's just so frustrating. It does look like Green Hoodie, right, Babs? It looks like, she says, oh my God, it looks like Green Hoodie. I mean, very strong resemblance. And we know that like the family members also have a strong, even some of Katie's other family members bear a strong resemblance to, obviously their family. Holly S is very much looks like Green Hoodie. Yeah. Mm. Hindsight says, especially with them each already having motorcycles, unless he was looking to upgrade his again. Yeah, and that's weird too. And why would they choose to go to look for new motorcycles when it was, the day that Sebastian's vigil was being held and he was getting an honorary award from the FFA? Oh yes, Holly S. He does have a lot of issues. He absolutely does. In my opinion, Fish Sticks has a lot of issues. He does. And, he's no longer helping in the Sebastian Rogers case to find him, which I really don't believe he ever was. But he in turn is, keeping up his same old, bull crap, going on X, and, leaving comments of harassment and hate. It's crazy. Oh, I'm sorry you had a rough day, seclusion works. I'm glad you're here though. Well, and I don't know. Kiki says maybe Fish Sticks helped, in my opinion, and he definitely helped muddy the waters, and I don't know why they paid him 15 grand. I don't know what the agreement was. Obviously, we'll probably never get the truth there. But there's got to be some reason that Chris would be willing to part with that. He seems like a real tight ass to me. And, I mean, there's a difference, in my opinion, between being frugal and being a tight ass, where you're just like, cheap. Right. And then if you do pay for anything, you got to let everybody know that you paid and how much it was. I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with a person like that. And it's not just men. I've dealt with ladies like that too, that, they'll do something nice and they'll pay for you, but they're never going to let you live it down that they paid and how much they paid. And, and the reason I say that is because of what Chris Proudfoot said about the fishing trip. He was bragging about how he paid for it. And then, they wanted to go again. So he was generous enough to go pay for another round of, on the boat. Well, that's what a guy does. Sorry. And most men will do that because they feel good about it and they want to provide and they're proud to do it. But he's the one that'll hold it right over your head like, I paid and this is how much. Hindsight says, SA officer, especially with each already having motorcycles, unless he was looking for upgrade. Yeah, that is still weird. Oh, that's a good point. SI officer says makes you wonder if about life insurance policies, etc. As my comment above. Oh I must have missed your comment there, SI officer. Let me take a look. Sometimes I'll erase them before. Oh, okay, gotcha. I think I got it. Okay. In my opinion, allegedly, it always made me question why he would want to buy KP a motorcycle, and then what is the futuristic plan for everyone? Yeah, really. I mean, right? Plus, it's kind of weird. I don't know. I usually see people like that. That's like a couple's activity, isn't it? I mean, I don't like motorcycles, guys. So you might have to help me out with this. Thanks for hitting the like, Carla. But like, I mean, if I was to ride a motorcycle, it would be on the back of a I would be on the back of it, right? Like I'd be riding it with a person who knew what they were doing. Because you won't catch my butt on there, unless it is that way. But I mean, I thought that was something that couples like to do together because, you're like close, you're like hold on to him or whatever. I don't know. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't like I don't like motorcycles. I'm more of a car type of a girl. A truck, a SUV, I don't know. Carla says, remember Dog said once that there was a large transaction in their finances. Gosh, I think September or October. Yes, absolutely, Carla. I remember that. And I do believe it was back in September of 24 and possibly like the beginning of October. Because, yeah, At Night was coming out. Oh, well, At Night came out and said that there was a large sum of money that had changed hands. And maybe that was in anticipation of hiring, fish sticks over there. Hey, Betty H. As far as I know, Tony is still working with Seth. As far as I know that he was under his own set of scrutiny. By the hate campaigns waged against him. But as far as I know, yes. Yeah, as far as I know. His attitude is cheap. Sammy G, yes. I just get that vibe, like he's just so cheap. And then like if he does, come up out of his pocket for anything, he's going to make sure that how much. And like, oh God, he's just one of those people that I don't know. I just can't stand to be around someone that does that. And that makes me feel like horrible that you paid, but you should feel good. And like, you should do it out of the kindness of your heart and be generous and not hold it over my head that you paid. We all had a good time, right? Like, it's weird, especially if you're paying for my kid. Like, that would bother me. I'd be like, isn't it something that you want to do? Or like, because by all means don't do it. But Babs says, if a person has to brag about and talk about the cost of everything, you're pitiful, insecure, and narcissistic. Amen. I mean, there it is. There you have it, folks. It's pitiful. It is. And it's like, don't make your date feel bad for like paying, and that was in the beginning that he was doing that, if you go on, I mean, I haven't dated in a long time, but if I go on a date with somebody, I'm not paying. I'm not paying for the first date. I don't care if it's coffee. I don't care if it's, a drink at the bar. I don't care what it is. I'm not paying for it, and that might be, my old fashioned attitude, but like, I feel like you should want to pay for it. And I think that's a huge red flag if a guy makes you feel like crap on the first date that he has to pay, or even like looks to you to come up out of your pocket for anything. Like, no way. No. I mean, like I said, call me old fashioned. Seclusion Work says, Christopher's entire attitude is pure evasion and bluster. It's dangerous. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the recklessness of what he's done on the YouTube streets, right? Just to kind of muddy the waters and make it so good people don't want anything to do with it, and then he's like, mission accomplished, Aw, thank you, Kiki. Kiki said super sticker. She says, I meant helped in disappearing of Sebastian. Sorry, need to reward. Oh, yes. I see what you're saying. Okay. Yes. Yes. I wonder about that myself. Well, because Chloe P.I. had known SF for a while, like they were in cahoots together, presumably helping people together, but then, that part is still so weird. Baba Rose says, if Green Hoodie is KK's mother, I just wonder if she has Sebastian hid out somewhere. I mean, I think that's a strong possibility. I do. I mean, and I know they say that they went and searched, right? Or they know that they're pretty confident that she doesn't have him, but I mean, we just don't know where he is, You're welcome, guys. Lordy, no credit for fish sticks. I mean, it's like, My Lord. Good morning, KJ Matt. Good to see you. That's where I'm at, hindsight. I agree totally. She says, Baba Rose, anything is possible until we know the truth. And the truth is what matters. The truth is all that really matters right now. Because again, if we're going on and on about a certain theory, then we have to have the right information to build a foundation, right? And if we don't, then it's a shoddy foundation. You know, we're already operating with the wrong information, and then it does nothing, you know, it's not going to hold any water. Um, seclusion works. She said fish sticks. Does the Beavis and Butthead laugh? Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That's how my mom always knew that we were watching that show and we weren't supposed to be. She'd be like, I could hear them laughing in there. You're not supposed to watch that. I was like, it's just a commercial, Mom. You know, and we're not watching it. You know, me and my brother. Baba Rose says, hindsight, you are correct. That's my officer. That's how it was with Chris yesterday. I was laughing so hard. Oh my gosh. Betty H says, I like Tony Mathis. He is so nice and he's good for Seth. Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's whoever Seth wants to work with him, right? And it's whoever he feels deems trustworthy, I should say. Because boy, it's been hard. I can't imagine what Seth has had to go through with just people who say they're there for him, but then they aren't. Just absolutely crazy. Hey, wait, what? Good to see you. I Am Two Bear says the internet doesn't get to pick your friends if Seth likes him and he's supportive. Yeah. I mean, I'm like that too. I feel that way too. I think that if, you know, someone's going to be there for you in the way that Tony has been there for Seth, then, you know, I'm not going to say nothing about him. You know, I don't have a problem. Oh, Kathy likes to ride a motorcycle. She says, I have and ride a 1984 450 Honda Matic. LOL, never learned to operate a standard shift. Yeah, see, and I didn't even know there was a difference. Like, you don't want me driving that. Nobody wants me on the road on that. That's cool though, Kathy. I'm glad you enjoy it. Not a ride or die type. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I clicked the wrong one there. Oh, that's so funny. As I officer, not a ride or die type. No. I just, you know, I'm not good. I'm not good with like that kind of machinery, you know. Holly, yes. She says I hear women pay now. That's me too. I'm like, no, please don't expect me to do that because that's already going to be a red flag, right? I'm already going to think that you're like not serious, right? Because if the guy's serious, he's going to come out of the pocket. He's going to buy you a nice dinner. You know, he's going to want to talk to you. He's going to want to, you know, get to know you better and at least try to, you know, fool you at first. Like, please, by all means, at least fool me at first. Like, Jesus, you know, because it can be, you know, and I don't fault anybody. I mean, it's tough. Like, you don't know who you're dating, like when you first start dating them. And then, you know, sometimes people are on their best behavior until you move in with them or, you know, what have you. And, you know, sometimes you get blindsided, you know, sometimes you get lucky with a good person, but then sometimes the mask falls, so to speak. Hindsight, yes, I do too. I look at everything as all options are on the table until the table seating has been decided, right? Yeah, because I mean, in this case, it's been hard because we're not getting straight answers, and that's really what it comes down to. So things are left on the table that might not even be relevant, but we have to keep them there until we know for sure, you know. My further missing says I love motorcycles and hate airplanes. See, I don't like either one. I'm not a big fan of airplanes, but like I will fly, you know, I have flown in my life and I will do it, but not my favorite thing. And, you know, Ava, good to see you. Ava says, I agree with you. A woman shouldn't have to pay for a date. Yeah, especially like the first couple dates. Like, I get it. Like, once you're, when you're boyfriend and girlfriend, or like if you live together and stuff, obviously people, you put your finances. Well, I mean, and I don't even recommend doing that as much. I think like keeping your own bank accounts is good. And then maybe even if you have like a joint one for bills, but I don't know. It's good to have your own money. Absolutely good to have your own money. That way you won't be, in a position where you can be financially abused. And that's that's another thing that people don't really realize, is that there are situations where people are financially abused, and, they won't allow for you to do better because they don't want you to have, enough to get away, and that freedom there. That comes along with having money. It's not everything, but you need it to survive. And Carla says, well, I wouldn't pay for a date with Chris, but I would for Sam Elliott. Yeah, I guess it just depends, right, Carla? But yeah, no, I'm not paying for Proudfoot. Oh, heck no. That's so funny. Oh, that's nice. Seclusion work. Says my wife, then girlfriend, paid for our first date. I cooked for our second. Oh, that's nice. See, but you knew the other person was serious, and that's I think that's what really matters. Plus, I just don't like Chris just has a terrible attitude about things, bragging about paying, and oh, you just got your power back. Hi, Lori. Good to have you. Oh, thanks for being here. Oh, my goodness. I heard a lot of people were out of power. And then there was that terrible story in Texas where the floodwaters had got a bunch of kids that were at, I believe it was a Christian camp. Sorry, I had an itch on my leg. Absolutely sad. Absolutely sad. Kiki says, sorry, but my husband pays for everything. I mean, I know it's probably like, some people might think, well, that's not as important, but a first date, it's like, oh my goodness. KJ Max says, that's why I'd rather adopt another dog rather than date in 2025. I know, it's tough, right? And you don't know what guys' expectations are then too, because maybe they've gone on several dates where the lady paid for them, and then you're like, well, I'm not gonna do that's terrible. And then they're thinking, this lady's cheap, like they're calling me cheap then, right? They're like, she don't want to pay for shit. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not. But that's kind of just the way that, I was taught to, like, the guy provides for things, right? And they should be happy to do it. If they're not, that's kind of weird, because, you don't know what type of a life you're going to get then. And they're just like laying on the couch all day. You're working your bum off. It's like, oh, no thanks. As the officer says, fish sticks for some reason reminds me of someone with bad cologne. Oh, and beer smell. When I look at him, I don't know why. Well, I agree. It's like if I saw that on a dating profile, I would definitely swipe in whatever direction meant no. I got that one picture of him and it was really funny. Oh yeah, because this one he looks like this is when he was on Lore Lodge, and I just went over to Lore Lodge earlier and I just decided, oh, that's a good one. Oh gosh. Yeah, he radiates like, what's the worst cologne? I don't know. Like, maybe Stetson. He smells like Stetson for men. Like, oh Lord. Definitely nothing good. From, in my opinion, That's what it is, hindsight. I think that is more so, yeah, the important part, right, is being respectful and sharing, and just, yeah. It does, because it works both ways, right? It's not always one-sided in a relationship. It's give and take. Um, David says seclusion. That's sweet. I know uh, how much you miss her. I know that is so sweet. And in the beginning of a relationship, it is a sweet time, right? Like those are sometimes the best days of a relationship. Michelle. Michelle says, Holly S. I'm like, lady, they better know I'm not buying, in my opinion. Oh, that's funny. I don't know, but because I do set up that expectation. Now, I do bring money with me, like in case talk about going south. If things go south, at least I can, um, get myself out of the situation, or if it's like one of those awkward things. I will say that I have met someone for a drink, and like I knew right away it wasn't like anything that I was wanting a part of, like it wasn't going to work. And so I did pay for my own like drink, and then I respectfully left. But it wasn't like, I wouldn't expect him to pay for like, surf and turf, and then I'd be like, bye, sucker, you know what I mean? And like, I'm out, I'm not going to do that. But I love cooking too. Seclusion works. And that is a lovely way to show someone that you care about them, in my opinion, is to cook for them. It is, because it's a labor of love, right? And I think that is a good first date too, or second date. Do something public, and then realize if you like each other or not still, and then have a quiet dinner. That's nice. Um, mm, that's probably might be some of the reason for like some of him popping off in the hostility, is maybe he's drinking too much, and then he's like, oh, and saying things. Yeah, barely functioning. Right. Because he's caused a lot of problems. And, I mean, he's not done anything good. Oh, Ava, we love Hindsight's channel here too. Yes, yes, yes. She's awesome. Sammy says, remember Yada mentioned her family member's house being searched? Yes, or door being busted down or something. Anyone remember? And was that true? So, yes, I remember when Yada went on Clue and said that the most recent time she came out. And she did say that. She said her family members' houses the doors were busted in and all of that. But then Chris came out and said that wasn't true. But I believe Yada. So, in my opinion, I think Yada was being truthful. I do. But I think Chris was lying, Hey, Lori, thanks for being here. Yeah, Sammy, I remember that. I think it was said, and it was true. I think so, too. Seclusion says, now I have the giggles over fish sticks. He had me cracking up with that last night, and then I was spelling it like sticks, like the band, just STIX. Oh Lord. Detroit Rock City says, waiting for the day when the hunter becomes the hunted, like a fox caught in a trap and chews off his foot. He's still hungry and will come back and try it again. Metaphorically speaking, I agree. Detroit. Oh gosh, it'll be a great day when that happens for sure. Sammy says, if true, that would be a point, or they are doing something, but it would be FBI or TBI. Was it North Carolina and not Sumner County, though? Well, and, I think it would have been, well, they have family in a couple of different places. Like, of course, we know Virginia, but then also North Carolina as well. So I don't know if it was the house. That's a good point, Sammy. I don't know exactly. And see, about when that happened, Chris came on the panel and was like screaming and yelling at her, 90 days true colors come out, right? Well, because I've dated guys that was like they were really, one guy that I moved in with, which I didn't do that very often or anything like that when I was dating, but one time I did, and it was like night and day, and I was like, "What? How are you hiding this so well?" So that didn't last very long at all. It's odd sometimes people they wait until they think, "Oh, I'm living, she's living here, so she's not gonna leave." It's like, bull crap. See you later. And Bab says, "That's why I've not been on a date in 5 years, not going there again, been fooled too many times. I can't trust." I know it's hard, right? It's like you don't know what people's true intentions are. You just don't. And unfortunately, you know, when you've been hurt and things like that, and I'm sorry that happened because it's nobody deserves that. I don't know why people do play games like that. If you're, like I never understood that either. Like if you're putting yourself out there or something like that, in any capacity, whether it's like online or, you're going out to bars and you're, kind of trying to hit on people, like why would you play games at that point? It's like I think sometimes it is to see how far they can go or to see if they could get you. And then once they realize they can get you, then they're like, mission accomplished. And then they're, like treating people like a conquest, and I know women do the same thing. But I've just experienced it, from a man because I date men. But, you just don't know what their intentions are. And sometimes it's like, yeah, just to kind of conquer and know that they could, which is sick. Kathy says, "LOL, lady, I learned to operate a motorcycle by pushing a single wheelbarrow." Really? Oh my goodness, Kathy, that's interesting. Thank you. Huh. Dear me, I'm losing my sanity. Aw, seclusion. Oh, that's wonderful, Kiki. Kiki says, "I've been married for 26 years. I was 19. My husband was 21 when we got married. We were kids." That's so great. I love that, Kiki. I think that's wonderful. Yeah, and it's so hard to find someone that you can stay with for 26 years is a long time. I mean, it is. Control, 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 SI officer says. Hindsight, yeah. It says wanting proof of anything does not mean disbelief. It means confirmation of fact. Just because something does not yet have proof doesn't make it a lie, but proof closes that possibility. I agree. That's absolutely so well said. And that's what I was joking about earlier. Like when I said, somebody gives us an inch, we want a mile, right? So if somebody's like, "Hey, this is a yellow jacket," for instance, and I'm like, "Okay, well, let me see his clothes." You know what I mean? Like, it's like, but I don't mean it disrespectfully. It's just like my skepticism coming out, and then I'm like, "What's the confirmation?" Right? Like you said, so I can, say, "Okay, is this fact or not?" So yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because I do feel that way sometimes. It's like, "We just told you, they come out and do a press conference," and I'm like, "Now I have more questions." Um, Bab says, "My best friend required a credit card bureau report and background report of her husband before she committed to them dating." Smart cookie. I agree. I don't think there's anything wrong with like looking people up like that in that way. I mean, as long as you're not gonna do anything. I mean, they tell you, if you'll agree, that you're not gonna hurt anybody when you look them up and stuff. But yeah, just for your own, because that can tell you kind of a lot of information right off the bat. And if they don't want you to do that, or if they get mad, then that's always a big red flag. Like for instance, if you ask somebody a question, and you're just being flat out with them, and they get defensive and they get mad or they try to blame you, it's usually because they're doing something wrong. So like, so for instance, if your friend had said, "Well, before we go on a date, I'd like to know your last name so I can figure out, if you're really who you say you are." And if he was to be like, no, or, standoffish or not want to tell, then that is a huge red flag that, he's hiding something. So yeah, she's super smart. Kiki says Bab's good for her. Oh, how cool. Seclusion Works says I was married for 4 happy years, best 4 years of my life. Oh, that's so sweet, Seclusion Works. Living in a foreign country, speaking a foreign language, and so immersed. Yeah, it'd be so easy to get immersed in another culture like that. Where did you live, if you don't mind me asking? Bab says, yeah, I will follow suit if I ever decide to date again. I'm too set in my ways and enjoy being alone most days, though. I know that's what's hard, right? Because you do. Well, and it's like, anytime anybody lets somebody else into their life, it's a big change, right? Because you're not only worried about yourself, you're worried about another person then again, and their feelings and what they like and how they like to live, especially if you're going to, move in. Um, Carla says, I got my parrots, 3 parrots, forget men and dating. Oh, really, Betty? Your husband's working over there by the Texas flood area? I hope he stays safe. Oh my goodness. I heard it was really bad. I heard it rose up super quick. Um, the river did. Yeah, Kathy says hindsight, absolutely. Show me the receipts, especially if you want me to believe you. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Because, we hear, I think that's part of like with the true crime genre. It's like we hear a lot of things and people tell us a lot of things, but we also can find out that those things are lies, like one of the biggest ones that got me, and I'm not even afraid to say it. Like I will say it, and I know people might say in the comments like, oh, you were duped, and it's like I was duped. But Gypsy Rose Blanchard, guys, I mean, I was really like gung-ho about her getting the help that she needed, and I was like, why are they putting her in prison? Well, come to find out, it was because she deserved probably to still be in there. I mean, if we're being honest, she got extremely lucky. And was she abused? Yes, I do believe she was. She was not brought up by a loving, caring mother who was teaching her right. She was teaching her wrong. And in return, she was modeling the behaviors that she learned from her mother. So she was ultra manipulative. She knew she could walk, all of that, um, so that was one that I was duped. I was duped big time. And boy, oh boy, and now I just watch some of the stuff and I'm like, I don't like seeing her getting harassed or anything like that. But in the same way, I'm not surprised that people are, that people don't think it's correct that she's out there, celebrating and her parole and, ultimately her mother's demise. I mean, but oh, I am too, Bear. That is such a strong statement. Yeah, staying single requires truly liking yourself. It's so much less drama. I'm older, so peace is important. I've become stingy too, lol. Yeah, well, it's true. And you do have to think about that as well. Like if you're doing just great, sometimes adding another person to the mix might not be the best thing either. I mean, you have to kind of weigh it out, unless you meet the right one, and I do think that there's someone for everyone. I do. You got to know your worth. That's the big one too, Kiki. Yes, absolutely. Um, and then if somebody comes along and they make you feel unworthy or not worthy, you'll know that if you already have the self-worth. But if you don't, then that's just like easy prey for people. Polo Polo cologne. Oh man, I can smell it now. Oh no. Axe reeks of dog farts. Oh my goodness, that's great. Axe. Yeah, some of those Axe sprays are like so are so nasty. They reek of dog farts. Oh gosh. Oh man. You know what I don't like is like is it cedar? Whatever, like I don't know if you guys have ever had like a hamster. But like you know like the bedding for the hamsters, it's like cedar or something. Like there's this type of like cedar cologne out there. I smelled it once and it is like it smells like a hamster cage. And I'm like, that's probably what I think about when I think of like a nasty cologne. Cologne is like hamster cage. Ode of hamster cage. It's got notes of hamster cage. Um, Babs says, OMG, I had a customer at the bank that smelled that you smelled him before you saw him use the car salesman. Yeah, like the oh gosh, what is it? The little trees or that car freshener? That's so funny. Oh my gosh. The first hotel I worked at before I was a sales manager, I kind of worked my way up, right? So I started at the front desk and did night audit shift and that, and then they promoted me. But we had a club right across the street from us, so people would come from out of town and they'd go to the club across the street. And one night, I was working and like I could smell these guys coming down the hall. Like it was like four guys, and they were dressed really nice, right? Because they were going out to, probably meet girls across the street. But like all of their colognes mixed together and like how heavy they all were, I was like, you know what I mean? And I'm like saying hi to them, like, hey guys, I hope you have a great time over there. But I'm like, please leave. And it like lingered. It lingered in the hotel. It was bad. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and that should never happen. I agree. Hindsight says, Kathy, amen. Asking for that becomes a personal attack, which it never should be looked upon. Yeah, no, it absolutely. And, none of this should ever get personal, in my opinion, unless it's like personal to us finding Sebastian, right? But like all of the other stuff, I don't think it should be. No, I don't. I think that's, doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. So, oh, I would love to see that too, Sammy G. Because remember, there was that one lady and she came out and she came into Justin's chat. She came over here and we were trying to figure out if she was legit, like somebody that dated Chris Proudfoot. But I don't think she was because she kind of disappeared off the scene. Kiki says, I'm sorry, but if he done me wrong, I'd be at the bank and take everything. Well, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Well, yeah. I mean, because, Dakar, Babs, Polo, SI officer, that's funny. Sammy, that would be interesting. It would be interesting. Well, and I'd like to talk to like the girl that he would go over and flirt with at the bar. Speaking of bars, KJ Max says young people really have it bad now. Young men bathe in cologne. Don't they know that it causes cancer, jacks up fertility? I suffocate for them on the train. That's how it was when four of them came out, like, because they were going across to the club, and I'm like, oh god, all of their colognes together. It was bad. It was so bad. And I mean, like, I'm sure they probably smelled good, like, independently, but all of them, like, in one spot, I was like, oh, and they were, like, wanting to hang down in the lobby and talk to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And, like, because usually things wouldn't pop off across the street there until, like, say probably even 10 or 11. So they were just kind of, like, hanging out, and I'm like, oh my god. But they looked really nice. They weren't, like, just a lot of cologne. Now I'm a sucker for a man who smells good, not overpowering, but takes the time. Yeah, Aqua Geo will melt me. Yeah, exactly. Like you want somebody to like, yes, like there's some colognes out there that smell so good. Um, they really do, and yeah, and some that have been ruined for me just because. But Carla says I love to cook it, and I finally have a kitchen and a range top, gas hookup next week. So excited! That's great, Carla. What are you gonna cook? I love to cook too. Cooking for your date makes me think of you on Netflix. Creepy. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen that. Oh my goodness. Before y'all date, research Maxwell Anderson and Sadie Robinson. You'll stay home, no dating, Bob Rose. Oh no. Oh my goodness. I know. I just don't know why. I think there's people that legit prey on other people. I do. I really do. I think that they don't want anything good, but they like to, they want to mess with somebody or, hey, C Taylor, see what they can get away with, which is sad. Carla says I'm married to my parents and I don't cheat. That's cute. Yeah, and I mean, it's scary to go out there. I don't know. It just is. Especially when you know that there's guys like Chris Proudfoot that, are already married and have a lot going on, but they're still wanting it to, hit on you. And oh, I must have missed a comment from C. Taylor up here. Okay, I see now. C. Taylor says, coming in late. Good to have you, C. Taylor. Just saw another YouTube creators video today about Mommy Borrow Sock's post on Facebook discounting CPS reports. Didn't know if you saw that his video. Was it 5D? I've seen. You know what? I've seen. We talked about him before. I don't know if she's discrediting them again. But that's interesting, C. Taylor. Huh? Bab says my husband's pastor's woman at our old church came to me and said she loved my husband's cologne. No lie. She said when he was preaching she had bad thoughts. Oh no, and had to leave church. I was like, what? Oh my gosh, I can't believe she said that to you, Babs. I wouldn't know what to say to her. I'd be like, oh, thank you, I think. Oh my god, that's so funny. It must have smelled good. But do you know it's weird too cuz like certain colognes smell better on certain people or like work with their body like the natural pheromones better too. I've noticed that. Cuz there's certain colognes that or even perfumes I should say that I don't like. Like everybody loves Clinique Happy and I never liked the way that smelled on me. So, oh, Seclusion Work says I'm off the market for dating. I still consider myself married. Oh, that's beautiful, Seclusion Works. You know, see, KJ Maxx says, C. Taylor, I did see that. Mommy Sockfoot needs to maintain the reputation of her spawn for her own reputation. I agree there. She doesn't want anybody saying anything bad about her baby. That's for sure. Which I mean, I can relate. But if your kid does something wrong, but see, it's just like I forget who said that earlier, but it's like um, he's constantly gotten away with things because his mom helps him get away with it. You know. Kiki, I don't blame you. I don't know what I would say to that. Like, I'd be like, okay. Bab says, who says that to the wife, though? I was really mad. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I would have been so mad, too. I would have been like, what is she talking? Especially in church. It's like, even if that does happen, I'd be embarrassed as hell. I would never tell a soul. I really wouldn't. I'd be like, what is wrong with me? But Bab says back in the day when there were places where we could actually dance with each other, I danced with a man who smelled good, didn't care what he looked like. Well, it makes a difference, right? I agree. Those guys were ready though. They wanted to be that guy who got danced with because they smelled good. So they were all putting their cologne on. That's funny. Sammy says I saw the post, but not any discussion of it. I just wanted to snap on her. Like the whole pedo grifter thing worked for some dummies for a second, but I tried, and yeah, we're onto their chaos. Yeah, absolutely, Sammy, and that's such a good way to put it. We're onto the chaos. Just stop it already. I agree. Oh, that's true, Babs. That's true. That is a nice compliment. Well, and I've always kind of taken that stance too, where it's like, I mean, if I think, my significant other is handsome, then there's going to be other, gals out there that will think so too. But he's still in church. Oh man. Oh, thanks, hindsight. Okay. So hindsight says, lady, to confirm there was no breaking down of any doors. Okay. Thank you for confirming that. Because I didn't know what to think of Yada, to be honest with you. I believed her when she came out the first time, and she seemed like she was, doing it for the right reasons. Because I do try to consider that when someone comes out with a statement. It's just kind of like, in Lily and Jack's case, when you have, that Deerwood or Derek or whatever his name is coming out, I'm like, what's his reason? Is he legitimately wanting to find the kids? And I don't think so. Oh, she had to leave church as a member? Like she wasn't a member of the congregation anymore? Oh my Lord. I was, but she had to leave the church as a member. I didn't know whether to be proud or offended or what in the world was she thinking, or do I want to know? Kiki, good point. I don't know. It's hard to say, right? Oh, you've been married to your husband for 35 years, Betty H. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That is great. Babs, she had to leave the church permanently. Oh, that woman has issues. Be glad she's gone. For sure. I don't know what I would say about that. I'd be like, yeah, that was so confusing. Why did she say that? What was she talking about? Yeah, I mean, I was so confused with that too. Like, why would you? And then to go on Clue, and that was weird, right? Yes, for that endurance, right? Oh, I agree. I am too. Bear says, "Congrats, Buddy H, for that endurance." It takes a lot, right? It does. It takes a lot of love and care and sticking with somebody, and because life is hard. Life is hard. It'll test us. Wait, what says Babs? Exactly 100%. And their bad breath, I gag and think, don't you smell yourself? Oh my goodness. And then add booze on top of it. Hey, baby. Oh boy. And half the time those places are like meat markets, anyway. So it's like my parents were married for 50 years before my dad passed. Aw, Kiki, that's so sweet. Yeah, see, my parents were married for 25 years and my mom passed away. Oh, okay. So you came back speaking fluent Quebecos. I don't know if I say that Quebecois. I don't know if I said that right. French in Canada, and still eat like I'm there. Ah, that's cool. Very cool. So you probably understand everything that's going on in Lily and Jack's case, you know? It was fast and ugly, Betty H says. Hindsight says, Sammy, respectfully, I don't disclose their personal information, but I can just say that there wasn't an LE invasion, as was told. Thanks, Hindsight, for clearing that up. Well, because, you know, then when Chris comes out, it's hard to know, like, you know, what's truth and what's not. So I appreciate that, because it is. It's like, yeah, cedar chips. See, Taylor, that'll make me like, oh gosh, I'm like, what is this? It smells like a hamster. I lived in Odessa. We had so much rain. There was no place for water to go drainage wise. The Dixie Highway became a raging river. The current was really strong and scary. Oh my goodness, Detroit. Oh wow. Cedar shavings is great. Seclusion. It was like, it's like a lotion. I think it's a Bath and Body Works, like the men's like lotions and stuff. That's what it was. It was like, oh gosh. Aw. Thank you, Baba Rose. Thank you. She says thank you. Thank you. Thank all of you. It's been hard. Much love to all of you. Much love to you, Baba Rose. Thank you. The hamster cage scent. Oh, I know, me too. I do feel bad for Nick Godejohn, even though I think he's, you know, got a lot of issues himself. But I mean, boy, oh boy, when you watch the footage and like what she was saying to him, and her saying to him like, we'll pull the one card that, you know, you can't stop, and that's Gypsy, you know. So it just showed that she was the ringleader for sure, which I never thought that, you know. Dirty hamster cage man. Don't want no hamster cage man. I don't like the smell of cedar either, Detroit, and I always thought, like, you know, it didn't bother me like with the hamster when because I had a hamster like a long time ago when I was a kid, but oh boy. Eternity for Cologne for Men smells amazing. Yes, I agree. That is a really good one. Yeah, there's some really, really nice smelling ones out there, you know. The seclusion work says I love it in pine. Yeah, and those are like the manlier scents that like they were trying to go for, I think, with that too. Yeah. Babs says, girl, you have not dealt with anything until strippers come into the bank with all their tips and you have to count it out. Oh my goodness. One time, well, I will say I have a story about that, because I was a cocktail server and a bartender, and I was saving up for our wedding photos, like, and so, you know, if I'd have a good night, I'd like put, you know, $20 away, or if I had a, you know, decent night or something like that. If it wasn't so great, you know, it just depended. And so, but it was always like dollar, it was all dollar bills. And when I went to the bank, I told the lady, I said, I swear I'm not a stripper. And she's like, yeah, huh? You know, but I have all these dollars, you know. It was really funny. Kiki, Babs used rubber gloves. But oh gosh, that's so funny. I can only imagine. Ask crack money. I am too, Bear. Oh my goodness. Like, I know where these dollars have been. KJ Max says, scents that linger have which has phthalate. Did I say that right? Which causes the scent to last longer. It's an endocrine disruptor. Young people really should know this. KJ Mac. That's funny. It was right down the street from the strip club. Oh no, Babs. Oh my goodness. That's so funny. Gives a whole new meaning to the word crack money. Seclusion. That's funny. Bam says, I don't know which was worse, the used car salesman smell, the strippers with their crunched up money, or the Indians who owned the hotel they said stayed in the bank the whole day. Oh no. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's so funny. Oh, how funny. You guys got me cracking up over here. We really don't think about the ways people are affected at work by rug use or other proclivities. Gloves uh, should have been a must. Yes, money is dirty. Oh, yes, it is. It is so dirty, and it doesn't matter. If you think about just the way it changes hands, and oh gosh, and even like, ugh, even just money from the bar, it is. It's like, ugh. Yeah, exactly. Detroit, I hear you there. I prefer a fresh showered man. If he walks in sweaty and dirty, here's a towel, just go. Exactly. Well, and don't use cologne as like a shower. Bab says that curry smell lingers on everything. We'd see him coming in and we'd be like, I'm out. It's your turn. Yeah, some of that stuff is very pungent. Like I don't know what the spices are, but you're right, it is very strong, and it lingers and you know. Uh yeah, exactly. Seclusion works. That's really important, especially if you work around, bad things like that, you know. Oh, Detroit says I love Jovan Musk for men. Yeah, it is. It is. KJ Beck, yes. Bab says you ain't lying. It's the dirtiest, germiest thing on earth. It is. Most definitely. Most definitely. Oh no. Kiki says my father-in-law told me I was so OCD that I was going to give my kids too many baths or their skin was going to come off. Oh no. Yeah, my dad had to have that talk with me too when my daughter was really little because he'd be like, because I'd be like, you got her all dirty, like they'd be playing out in the mud and everything. And, he's like, you cannot, you have to expose her to some germs. Otherwise she's, you can't put her in a bubble. Oh yeah. I'm the same way, Kiki. Yeah. And it's funny because I leave a hotel room like cleaner than what, I found it. I'm like that too. Most definitely. Aw, thanks. I am too, Bear. You guys are so hilarious. You guys got me cracking up over here. Well, I better get off of here so I can get to making. I want to finish up the video, a couple of videos that I got to put out. Um, I was Detroit. I was I got a little bit behind because yesterday I just kind of took the day off and then I was over there watching Mob Crew and kind of just relaxing. So, but I'm gonna get that other video out and figure out all of Dan Bongino's contact information so we can start writing because I know that's one thing I did see on Crime Time Buzz, and she mentions it too about writing letters and things like that. So I was so glad to hear her saying that because it's so important that we all do it together. That way they feel it. They'll like get all these letters and they'll be like, "Oh gosh, what are these people trying to do?" It's like we're trying to find Sebastian. We need your help, and it's not. Nothing is being taken seriously, and we need it to be. Because now I don't even know if they took the tips that I send in seriously. And here I'm sitting here like, I'm sure they did, and now I'm like, oh, maybe they didn't, it's not a good feeling at all. And I don't like to, I would rather spread a message of like, the police are working as hard as they can. And, I really believe that, but I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure, but, thank you all so much for being here. And like I said, we're going to still be painting the picture. I think I can get enough of a video out to kind of everything that we've talked about so far. I'd like to push that out and kind of, get it into one place. And so once we start moving forward, it'll just be a little bit easier to reference. But we've gone over a lot of things, and I kind of want to put in a timeline of events. And then, of course, if anybody knows about the poker party, definitely send me an email, ladyfreedomsrawnarratives@gmail.com, and that's no apostrophe in there. So that way, we can get some more information about that poker party, because there may be some information that we're missing. Bonjour, seclusion works. So yeah, I think that's really important. I do. And, getting a good time frame of events. And like I said, Chris helped us out with that one. I was like, oh, that's great. Thank you, I Am Two Bear. Thanks, C. Taylor. Yeah. And, I think that's what we'll do. And just kind of moving forward, we're going to be kind of getting into what I think about the flashlight video, and going more in depth with that. I know I did some lives about Chris's theory, and I think that it really lays it out, especially when we look at just like right here, there was a car in the neighborhood, and even though the timestamp isn't what we think it should be, or maybe inaccurate, it doesn't change the fact that there was a car in the neighborhood. So, I really want to explore more of that. But thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate you. And then I will see you all. If I'm not on tomorrow, if I do get these videos out, I might not go live tomorrow, but I'll definitely be back for Monday Night Raw. So, and I will check out your video to Hindsight, because I really want to see and hear what Katie has to say. That's really interesting. So, and then I have something else that's in the works coming up for us next week as well. Some interesting audio that someone sent me. So, lots and lots to go over still. And, thank you, Kiki. Thank you so much. And I will see you all Monday night.